Dungeon Master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position.
Dungeon Master and Dwarven Sword Master, Hobgoblins, Dwarves, Elves, and Halflings are some of the characters and terms used in this very complicated and controversial game.
You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created.
Well, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Natural Ones. The normal day we stream, we did a bonus stream yesterday with Greg and I. So you got 2 streams this week, aren't you guys? So either cursed or lucky, I don't know. Joined, as usual, by Victor Gorchev. Thanks,
Hoi
Vic.
iedereen.
Hey, what's around your neck, buddy? What's that?
Well, turns out I'm an award-winning RPG writer now. So, hey, look, everyone. I've won an Annie. Thanks to that guy over there.
Thanks to our guest, yes.
Yeah.
Rob, thanks for coming on, man. Author, creator of Gods of the Forbidden North. I got both of them right here. These things are fat books. You got volume 3 coming out, and that's what we're here to talk about. So thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. They're thick.
They are. I could hurt someone with these with a 2d10 bludgeoning damage.
Gutenberg press type books. 800 pounds. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I don't know, man. I think just right off from the start here, I don't know if anyone's made a singular campaign / module that's as big as this. Has anyone ever made that will be as big as this? Because each of these is like 300 pages or something like that, or 400 pages. Like, is anyone? Do you have like the largest campaign book?
So that's from what I know, and I don't know everything, and I looked real hard. I think by page count, I'll have, if you look at all 3 books as one book, because that's what I look at them, man. I look at it as one book. It's just I had to break them up for obvious reasons. But I think by page count, they would be the biggest published adventure possibly of all time, but probably not by a word count. Like I think Arden Vool by Richard Barton, I think his name is. He's a professor too. Actually, it's kind of fun. Most professors don't want to shut up. No, he's a historian, brilliant guy. But he's got the 1,100 plus page article. But if you look at the font,
Smaller.
It's like really tiny font, like 3 column or whatever he's got going there, like Gygaxian style, like, and he packs that sucker with like tons of. So I think by word count, he probably blows me out of the water, actually. But by page count, probably by number of encounter areas, we might actually be, I might have more pages than him, and I might have about the same encounter area number, but I don't think I have the same word count.
Yeah. Well, you're also writing for Old School Essentials, though, and Old School Essentials in general kind of has like a more concise like writing style. So,
yeah.
So I personally always try to kind of match that to myself. So.
Yeah, no, it is very. I never fully copied it because it's just not my style, but I definitely forced myself to trim more than I would have normally because to more align with what Gavin and his crew does. Because I like it. It's very good for running games in terms of just running them fast, getting the information you need. Right. That's the big plus about it. I like that.
Yeah. I do know of like a 5th edition like adventure. I can't remember what it's called, but it's third party, I think, and that one's like 950 pages or something. That one's like massive too. But yeah.
Yeah, I think there was one that billed itself as the biggest 5e one. It was Oath of the Crownbreaker. Is that? Yeah,
I think that was it. I think Legacy showed that to me once.
So I think they were 916. But I know, like, I think in the same month I might be running mine. Sorry. The same month I'm launching mine. I think World's Largest Dungeon is making a comeback on BackerKit, I think, and they're going to do a 5e conversion. Now, the original product was smaller, both in Ardenvool or mine, so it's not really the largest dungeon, I think, anymore. Yeah. Ardenvool clearly is, so, but they have that as the actual name, so they're not going to obviously change. So I would assume they're going to try to expand that at least. You know, I don't know how they're going to tackle that, but I mean, because Barton's work is just enormous. I mean, and he did it all himself. Like that's what's really that was a team of writers, the World's Largest Dungeon, I think.
Yeah.
So you know that's pretty, and so I give a head nod to him as probably truly having the largest product of all time content wise. But I will be able to brag and be able to market.
Yeah,
page count.
I'll be able to say. Yeah. The largest published adventure of all time.
And any award winning. I mean, you should use
any
that, dude.
Yeah, minor any award by page count. You see what I'm doing there?
For those that are interested too, obviously go check out his website. I threw it in the chat here, and I have a lot of Rob's links in the video description below. So make sure you check those out, and links to the pre-launch page, I believe I saw of the Kickstarter for Volume 3.
Yeah. I looked at your website the other day, and it looks really cool now. Like, you know, you can definitely tell that you got some money behind you. Mine still looks like it's from GeoCities at like 1979, or 97. Yeah, Thanks, stupid English, but yeah.
The guys who did that were Wayfinder Agency. Adam is the owner there, and he's a really interesting guy. If you know him, did you ever cross paths with him, John?
No, I don't think so. If I did, I don't remember him. I'm sorry.
No, he's really nice guy, and has a team all over the world, actually, international team, and which I think is cool. And then he basically from the story told me, I'll give you the condensed version. He worked with the DM Dave guy at their day job. So like he didn't know DM Dave was DM Dave. Like that's Dave the engineer or whatever the heck he is in real life, you know. And then one day he came up to him, he says, "Oh, hey Adam, you're good at this marketing stuff and you're young. Could you help me with what I'm doing?" And then he looks into it and he finds out about this RPG world, you know, he didn't even know anything about. And so now that's how he got into it. And that campaign, I think he did almost 500,000 on it.
Wow.
That DM Dave campaign, and he was the ad guy behind it. And so then he started saying, "Hey, these guys need help, and this is like a little niche market." And I think that's what Adam has lined himself up for. Is essentially helping guys like me and you and Vic help us, like, because we don't know what we're doing with marketing, helping us like get out there. And so he's right now. I'm sure if you're on Facebook, you probably see me popping up constantly. So you can blame Adam for that, not me.
Maybe I do know him because I think once we're friends on Facebook, and I think he might have friend requested me.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. The name sounds familiar.
I think it's Zlotnick, I think is how you say his last name. I don't want to mispronounce it, but he's a really nice guy. I've met with him many, many times now. I've worked with him now in 2 campaigns. He really, I think, was a big part of my last success because I just began to discover the true power of advertising as a small company guy. I did everything on my own the first time.
Then, you did well. You still did well.
No, I did. Yeah. And I did everything I could do in my power that I understood to do what I did. But there was a point where you can't, to get past that, you got to go the ads. It's the only way. Right. And so I got him at the last second to do the help he did. Like literally he got hired like 4 days before I started the campaign, launched it. This time I hired him in November. And so he redid my website. We came up with this VIP funnel. If you go to my website, pulphummock.com, you can sign up with your email, then you get an email back. And if you give $2.99 to me, I'm basically going to give you a bunch of free stuff that you can't get anywhere else. And what's really going on there is it's helping me project my first day launch numbers, because that's the most important day. And you got to, if you like right now, I've got about 500 VIPs and I've got about 1,200 pre-launch signups. And usually on a crowdfunding campaign, like let's say I have 1,000 people that are on my pre-launch page and that's all I had. And I turn around and I launch. Usually the standard wisdom, which I've seen bears out, is 10 to 20% of them will actually back you by the end of the campaign. So you get 1,000 people, you're really going to get 1 to 200 who actually back. Mine was, it was literally, I think it was like 18 or 20% first time. Second time was 35%, but that's because of the nature of my product. It's a multi-part product. So obviously more people will keep coming back each time, and that number would rise for me. I don't know if that would be true every time after this, but if you turn around and you get somebody to throw some skin in the game, then they give you $1 or $2, that 10 to 20% number jumps to like 80, 90%.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much determine most of my 500 people will still back me on launch day, and then they'll tell you what they're going to back you at a lot of times. So then you can go, oh, I'm going to make, this amount of money on my first day launch, which is the most important day of launch, like a rocket firing off, right? You got to, the stronger you fire off that first day, the further you go.
Sure.
So right now my projection is about 68 grand just from previous backers. I think I'll hit 68 grand on the first day at least. And I made about 40 something last time. So if new backers, that have never heard of me or seen me and never really backed me, see that launch and then see the 68 number, that's more, right? Potentially, because the excitement builds. That's the nature of it, right? You want to be on board with a winning product, right? Just like anything, right? Like, and that's kind of the idea. So you have to really work that first day launch. And that's what Adam was helping me do. We were trying to figure this out, and I'm a pretty transparent guy, so I'll tell you exactly what I'm doing here while we're playing cards, and maybe you'll beat me as a result. But it's just because I'm a professor. I always explain everything.
No, I think that's really good because Vic and I, and there's some people that might watch this later or in the chat, and that's, I think what you just said is like really good marketing advice for creators. Because here's the thing, I think that. And I don't know, maybe, I don't know if you've struggled with this, Rob. I know maybe Vic and I struggle with this, is like marketing our own stuff is so hard because as a creator, as a creative person, as for me, like I write and I do my own art for my stuff. Like I can do that part. I can do the layout for my stuff. I can do all the artistic stuff and the autistic stuff. But but when it comes to that business part, like I struggle with that. When it comes to the marketing part, the more like that part, I don't know what I'm doing. So
I've put a decent chunk into Facebook ads, and I don't think they've ever panned out. I don't know. They always go weird on me. Like all of a sudden, I'm like advertising to people in the middle of Ukraine. I'm like, how? I didn't even set Ukraine. I have set like North America. How the hell did I end up in Ukraine? And then I put like a couple grand into YouTube, which actually kind of worked fairly well. But I'm not sure if it was worth a couple grand at the end of the day. But because you got me curious about the conversion rate, I just checked mine on Modern Necessities, and I had like a 42% conversion rate. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mine was 35% on volume 2. So you beat me, so very well done. That means
you beat me in money, though. That's the important part.
Well, you have a loyal following, that's what that means. You have a core group of supporters.
Right. Thank you. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning for gifting a membership to Agile Monk. What's up, Agile Monk? Welcome to the elites. I hope you like it. Welcome to the bougie side of the Basic Expert.
Strong monks are better. Strong monks are better than agile monks. Sorry.
You're now an expert, not a basic.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I'm glad you're transparent about that kind of stuff, because these are things where I would feel kind of like behind the scenes, like, hey man, if you feel comfortable like telling me how you're doing this XYZ, like, I'm up for anything. Like when I was doing my Kickstarter, you gave me a few pointers about like pre-signups and stuff like that, and I do think that your advice for Muckwheat really helped me meet my goal and exceed it. So, I'm thank you.
Yeah.
No, you're welcome. No, I feel like a free open system Tron style.
Yeah.
I used to work in nonprofits too. So like, you had to like answer to your your donors, and you had to be the more transparent you were with them, the more they trusted you, right? And the more they were willing to, entrust you with their funds for whatever your mission was, stewarding that money. So I kind of feel like, I've heard people say the opposite or disagree with me. I don't agree with them. I think Kickstarter is not a store. I know it gets viewed that way, but it isn't. It's a donation site. It's a fundraiser. Yeah. That's what it is legally, and that's really what it is. And I know that there's a back end that becomes a for-profit part of it. So it's sort of like this weird hybrid, but really, like, I think the best way, in my opinion, to approach your donors essentially is to view them as a nonprofit, as donors. Yeah. Like, they're giving you money to go run off and make art of some kind, whether it's for games or entertainment, whatever. And
whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And I think that you have to, if you treat them like that, like that they're partners, instead of just some customer who's a transaction, which I feel it's more limited, and it's usually a briefer, relationship duration. Like, the customer, it's just, hey, you give me the money, I give you what you want. We both think we won. You walk away, and you only come back when you got something new that you think they need. But like a donor, like I spent 18 months whining and dining them before I ever asked them for money.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and I know, and it's like the Michael Scott Rolodex. I know their black lab lost egg last week, but really likes cupcakes, like whatever. But you have to like get to know them, and you have to really and then you have to really share a vision for what you're trying to do, and I think that's the big difference there is your job when you create that Kickstarter page and anything surrounding it. Your job is to paint a vision so that they see what you're going for and they want to be part of it too.
Yeah.
And everyone wins, because the world's a better place. You've brought in your art, or you helped this or whatever.
Yeah. I never get those Kickstarter, like people that do Kickstarters and then tweet their backers like trash. Like I just don't get that.
I haven't seen that. I've just heard. I'm not a huge Kickstarter guy myself. Like, I've done a couple projects that I've backed, but I just forget about them.
Yeah. Well, I've heard some horror stories.
Yeah.
Like including people being called by the creator and like called at their home number and like yelled at. Yeah.
Oh dang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a wrong way to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got some questions here.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's see. Where was one I wanted? Chubby Funster's in the chat. What's up, man? He says, "How does Rob still have ideas left? 3 volumes. The man is a boss. Level 9 at least."
Is he asking me that? You want me to answer?
Well, I don't know. Like how we've talked about this before, but like this project seems to have like grown and grown and grown. Your original thing was this was going to be a 1 volume kind of one and done thing, and it's grown into a trilogy of books, which is I won't complain, but I think it's cool. More content for your OSC game is always setting material is always cool, but I guess a little bit about that, like your ideation generation and stuff like that.
I think, as a creative, like I'm a writer, right? Not an artist, but and you probably know what I'm talking about, John. Like, you never really actually run out of ideas. You always think you will, but you don't. You don't run out of ideas. You think you do, or you think you will, or you get afraid you will. But usually, if you are writing, like, or whatever it is that you do as an art form, usually you are trying to practice it constantly. And so what happens is if I sit down and I write every day, even if it ends up being totally meaningless and ending up on the cutting room floor, something may pop into my head while I'm doing something, while I'm reading to make myself a better writer, while I'm writing, after being inspired by something I've read. And it just, it really comes back to, I'm a religious person, so I'm Catholic, and I believe God is eternal and all encompassing. So like, there are, and if you believe in such things, then when you look in like the scriptures, there's angels that constantly they're awed by God because he's revealed something new to them that they did not see before. And this will continue forever and ever. That's literally what heaven is supposed to be, if you believe that. Because it's just, imagine worlds like, our universe is expanding, right? It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So big, in fact, that you can drive, or if you tried to fly in a ship as fast as we could possibly fly, you could never catch those universes that are further away from the explosion point than where we're at now. You could only go backwards. And if you went backwards, you could never come back, So think about the size of that. You can't. But think about the size of such a universe, and then imagine that like that is finite and that has an end. And so like what I'm getting at is creation. To me, this creative spark juices that we have as human beings, in my opinion, it really comes because we come from a creator God who created immediately in the beginning and continues to create and will create forever. Every human life that pops up at every moment. I mean, and they're all different. None of them is the same. Every idea is new. So I think when, I didn't believe that for a long time, or didn't really, even when I said I did, I didn't. But the more and more that I've gotten closer to God, the more I realize, I'll never run out of ideas. I'll always have too many to use. And that's what I've actually found in the last 10 or so years to be true. I have a huge file, for example, of things that just go on and on and on. That I go and I pluck one out from time to time, and that's you know what I mean. That's all I can do. But
well, Vic and I were talking before the show. We were talking about Vic was saying, I have a project that's on the cutting room floor, or like I kind of abandoned it, and I have multiple things like that I started writing, and that I'm just like, this isn't working. But then I find myself going back to it and being like, well, that project might be dead in the water, but like there's some stuff in there that I can take out and put in this other thing that I just got inspired to do, So I kind of feel that way too, where you sit and wonder, like, am I going to run out of ideas? Am I just going to sit down to create something and then nothing's going to come out? But I've never had that happen. I've struggled, but I've never had that actually happen where it's like, wow, nothing happened. There was absolutely no productivity at all. There's at least like an idea that gets out, or onto the page or onto the canvas or whatever. So
I was like one of those kids who was raised on TV cable. so like basically my brother and I would stare at TV all day. My mom would occasionally, we knew some movie was coming on when we weren't able to watch it. She'd record with the VHS, the old. So like we would just sit there watching stuff over and over again. And so we were just raised on pop culture. Sometimes we talk to each other just in quotes, like screwing around, Yeah. So like we have so much that you can just from that, just from like stuff that's come before. That's great. Like I was on Yang and Zhao's thing last night, and he was talking about one of his guys he knows. I forget what the guy's company name is, but he's coming out with some sort of like shark ninjas or something. And I was like, that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ninjas, like that's, but it's a new thing, right? Sharks. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. You can just, everything's old under the sun, right? But nothing is new. Yet at the same time, it's always new when it comes out again, because it's.
That makes me think of Street Sharks. I used to watch Street Sharks when I was a kid. That was like, it was like Ninja Turtles but sharks, and it was a total ripoff, but I loved it because the sharks are awesome.
No, they're jawsome. Remember that?
Oh, that right.
They're jawsome.
They're jawsome. Yeah.
Totally better than Turtle. What are you
talking about? I totally get that. Like Vic and I, we were slowly working on Redacted, which is like paranormal investigation game, and using my Cowpunchers rules, and like I'm looking at it and like I'm kind of pilfering from another dead project that was going to use the Cowpunchers rules to like inform this, but it'll work better over here. So it's like it's like I said, it's one of those things where that thing might be a dead end, but you should maybe even like return to it because there might be something there that's applicable to where you're stuck at in this other project or this other creative facet or whatever.
I have the same thing. Like a year or two ago, like a year and a half ago, I wrote like 80 pages of like a Cyberpunk game, and then I abandoned it because there was like a way more professional Cyberpunk game coming out, like literally as I was, trying to finish mine, and I didn't want to like compete with that. So it's like, it's somewhere in my files, but I'm just gonna like mine that for when I do my Cyberpunk supplement for Modern Necessities. Like a lot of the stuff I can still use. So.
Well, you can always go back too. You can go back and look at it because I've written game systems before just for fun, and that's how that turned into the hobby became a reality. But and you probably both have done the same thing. But I've gone back and read stuff, and like maybe not all of it's great, but like I'll read it and go, hey, some of this is really good, and you can cannibalize it, or Or hey, what maybe can you give your Cyberpunk game a spin that an angle nobody else has?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I always teach my students at the university is like, you know, all three of us could, you know, we could have like see that miniature there in the bottom right, sitting on that book right now, the D&D encyclopedia. Like, you know, if each of us were in the room at a different spot, we would see a different side of that miniature, right? We would see a different angle, a different light, a different, you know. And when you teach like poetry, for example, you use images, like an image like that, something tangible. And if you look at it from different angles, you know, essentially you get different, you know, there's different things it could represent or signify or touch on, depending on how you look at it and cast it and the way you present it in your work. And so a lot of times, like just changing the lens of the angle you're appearing at something makes it a new poem, makes it a new work, you know. And because the way you described it, John, from your angle, you noticed this, and that touched on some personal experience you had, and you bring those together, right? And Vic, you do the same thing, and Rob does the same thing. We all have three totally different poems about the same exact object. And so you might have Cyberpunk, but like Vic may have a very interesting way of looking at the Cyberpunk that nobody else has tackled yet, and that makes it its own pillar of the community, you know. Like, so just something to consider. Like, you know, I wouldn't necessarily abandon it. I'd go back and read it first.
Yeah, exactly. You know? I always save my old stuff because you never know when it comes in useful.
Yeah. I mean, we can come back to this point, but there's some other questions people have about it. So Chubby also asks, what kind of new and exciting stuff will be in Volume 3 that will be even greater than what was in the first two volumes?
Well, first you get the final two Tarngrak, the greater demons roaming around. They're basically my kaiju monsters. They're like
Greg.
Final Fantasy VII. Remember the big guys stomping around?
Yeah.
Like,
That's
what
the weapons.
Was. What was it? Go ahead, Vic.
Yeah. The weapons they're called.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's kind of where they're inspired. I watched a lot of Godzilla, and I love that in Final Fantasy VII. I was like, and I think all the Final Fantasies have had some form of roving, massive boss that you're just like, I gotta go kill that to get the item, you know, the MacGuffin. So obviously, I had 9 Tarngrak in the whole thing. One was captured, imprisoned in Vartoriak, the final chapter of the first book, and he can be released, and he shows up and kills this dude and takes over if you do, which is awesome. But if you don't ever find him, there's 8 other dudes roaming around that are free, you know, so to speak. And the final 2 I never got to get to, and they are going to make the final appearance in the castle and the dungeons below it. So that's the first thing: is you get to complete the set of kaiju. You get the
collect them all.
There's another 4 million. Oh, excuse me. There's another 6 million experience points in treasure and monsters in just Volume 3. The first 2 have about 4.5 million together. And so it's really ramping up. And then I think there's like 634 encounter areas just in the castle and its dungeons below.
Wow.
That does not include the Cyclopean City, which is like this. You've ever seen or read Caverns of Thracia? There's like that huge underworld like cave at the very bottom of the dungeon, and it's like got dinosaurs and reptile men. So like I've got like my own like huge cavity of you know, that's under the world, the lost city, the ruined city, the city of chaos.
Yeah.
And, basically there's like 21 dungeon towers spread out throughout that, and that's essentially a hex-sized wilderness, a sub-sized wilderness. So it's all for high level, like 13th, 14th plus. So it's literally just going to be a huge. And then there's the Tesseract of Time, which is the final chapter, and that's where the Skull God Balor is with Volthum the Endworm, its head anyway. And and its ocular tyrants roving about, the evil eyes of the enemy, roving about seeking its prey. And the players are going to probably wind up popping into that if they survive too long. And then they're stuck in a 3-way battle where they're like, oh crap, it's the skull guy we've been hearing about. But there's this thing way worse. And oh man, wait a minute, that thing wants to eat Balor, and if it eats him, it gets out. We have to help Balor. And of course, Balor is about the most evil dude on the planet. You're like, oh crap!
You got to make a choice. That's cool.
Yeah. So you know, that kind of fun stuff. It's not doesn't have a clear answer.
I think that's cool that you're kind of focusing, because that's one thing that I think a lot of, because this is the risk, this is the reward of making content for TTRPGs, is the low hanging fruit is often like that level 1 to 5 stuff, because that's what most people get to, and then oftentimes their campaigns fizzle out when they get to about 5 or 6 usually.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what edition you're playing. It's like usually a lot of people around that point just stop, restart. And I get it, that early level's fun, but I love seeing content for like that higher level, those higher level players, that higher level characters, because there's you and there's another Rob on X who I have some of his adventures that are high level.
Necronomicon?
No, Rob Couture.
Oh yeah.
He writes high level like old school adventures, and I think that's rad.
Yeah, same.
I
need to start on my own, and I'm kind of dreading it.
My ear trumpet says, I wonder what an omnibus edition would look like. And Chubby Fudster says, is there a plan to sell an omnibus edition? And I'm looking at just the 2 here, and this seems like this would be too big to print in a single single thing. So I don't think it would be physically possible to do an omnibus, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Well, I'd always envisioned as one. I mentioned this in Yang's interview yesterday, so I don't want to retread too much ground on what he did. So his interview is up as of last night, but basically, like, I have to make a decision on whether or not I can move forward with any more products, depending on how much I make from this. And I think I need to make about 125 to 135, which I think is possible because I made 108 last time. So I think I could make that. That would break me even, and then I would have about 20 to 30,000 of back sales when Volume 3 released from Drive-Thru, and then that would be able to fund another project. You see. So if that works, or I make more and then I have even more fun money to do something with, I probably will pursue a 5e conversion first to give my batteries a recharge, because that's an easy job. It's already, it's already written. I'm just basically converting, and I play 5e all the time. I know it really well. So I've considered a little bit of how I would organize that on my days off when I don't want to think about real work. And I said, what if I just reduced it to 2 books and I put them in a slipcase, and then that way 5e would truly be like a different version, like not just it would be a little different, presented differently. I could make it where all the lore, the monsters, the magic items, anything that you would reference while you're running the game as the ref, into like, say, a compendium. And then the other book would be like the adventure guide, which has just the hex crawls, the underworld, all the adventure chapters would be in those. And if you remove all the stat blocks, from all those chapters, I probably would be able to cut off a good 100 or 200 pages easily. So, and I already have, if I kept black and white art and just used what I already had, that means I'd have even more art than I already do per page. To spread out, so it would probably be almost too much. I might even have to cut some art. So I think that the 5e could become a 2 set thing, and it wouldn't be volumes. I would just say it's Gods of the Forbidden North 5e, and it's just you buy. I mean, maybe, if I did that, and then after that, I would do the Overlords of Steel, which is my next idea. So
the Riddle of Steel,
the Overlords of Steel. That's expanding on the world. So
nice.
I like that idea. I think making it for something like that for 5e would be I think that'd be smart.
Do probably really well.
Yeah, that'd be smart.
The question is though, would you do it for 2014 5e or 2024 5e?
2024.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess money wise it makes sense, but yeah.
I'm not a fan of like all the art choices in the player's handbook. I think the DMG is really nice. I liked it. I think the rules, I've been playing it, and I think the rules are really well done. I'm really impressed.
Do you think with 2024?
Yes.
I haven't looked at it yet. I'm still like, if I were to run or play 5e, I would just stick with my 2014 books. But I haven't looked at 2024.
If you strip all the WotC stuff out of it and just forget about it for a second, just say it's D&D, I'm playing it, and I'm just going to enjoy it, and I'm just going to put my shutters on and ignore their dumbness sometimes. If you look at it, those first like 20 pages or whatever of the player's handbook are excellent. Like the way it condensed all that information, and then the changes I think they made to the classes. I played a fighter and he died on Tuesday night or a Monday night. But he his name was Wrath the Dwarf because that's how I like to do Dwarf Fighter. And I ran up and I was holding off like 7 skeletons and 2 zombies single-handedly, and I saved the whole party, but they all ate me.
Nice.
But the weapon masteries I was using was even more fun than a fighter normally is, and I was I've been very impressed so far with the low level, because I haven't gotten high level yet, but I've been very impressed with the low level changes so far. It's a really good system if you look at it just without the
but that's hard though. Like it's hard to look past all that the nonsense.
That's hard for me. But the weapon mastery, I'm curious about that. Is it like a lot like the Rule Cyclopedia weapon mastery? Is that? I heard people talking about it, and I'm not.
Yeah,
we're going off topic, but I'm just curious about this one point.
No, we talk game forever, man. Like I was using like a Warhammer and a shield. So like a Warhammer normally just does its Warhammer damage like you're used to in regular 5e. But if you have the weapon master, which only the martial classes get, which gives them a little something extra, like I can now kind of 4e style like hit them and knock them 10 feet back. You know, so I could be like boop boop, and you know, like I had like I think 3 masteries at first level. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to do Warhammer. That's from my club for the bony guys. And then I'm like, oh, then I'm going to have my axe, you know, and then I'm going to have my javelin just in case I got to throw something one time for running up and killing them. And each one, like the javelin hits you and it like slows you or knocks you down by 10 feet of movement for a round. So like it's like creates those. It's like they're bringing back 4-isms, sneaking them in. You know what I'm saying? Like tactically miniature style, like slowing guys, moving them, and it just makes it a little bit more. And all the martial classes, barbarians, I think they all get them, but not the casters.
We'll have to get Yang on to debate you. He's saying it doesn't exist. Just stick with 2014.
I mean, I love 14 too. I mean, I'm not trying to like. I think they're both. I like 4. I like 3. You know, I've been impressed with the 24, the design. I'm with the press with the design. Some of the art is very good. I really liked it. I wasn't a fan of everything that they do as a company. Like I'm not, it doesn't feel like they respect the hobby, or they just try to bend the knee. But whatever. How many companies do that too? Like all of them.
my biggest hurdle with it is the aesthetics, and I don't like how they handle like races now. I don't like the whole like you can just be whatever. You can be like an elvish dwarf, and you're like, or you can be a human, but you're like 12 inches tall. Like what? like no, that's not a human. That's a monstrosity.
I think off your point, like they moved the ability scores from the race to the background, but it really, I think probably on a character creation level, if you don't realize that there's a way that you can just make your own up, because it does say that in there, but it's kind of buried. I think that's one thing they kind of like tucked away a little. It kind of just creates, well, now only soldiers get the strength bonus instead of the dwarves or whatever. Like, so it just kind of moves it around. But I was sorry, what was I going to say? Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say I'm working on a 5e clone actually of 2014.
Yeah.
But I'm going back to bioessentialism with like 1e and 2e and style racial limits. So, you know, people will probably hate or love that, but whatever. But that's just like my vision. I'm kind of looking at it though, because you know I think I guess to talk about you making it for 5e, because some people are like, cool, that sounds great in the chat, and some people are like, no, I don't like 5e, and it's like I get it. It's a mixed bag with like a lot of baggage to it as an addition, you know, and
but at the end of the day, you're also a business, so you know.
Yeah, and I think that, like you just said, you died in your game. I do wonder how much. I mean, I've talked with this with people, like how much of 5e's misunderstanding is just because people don't play it right. You know, you got coddling DMs, which, to be fair, a lot of DMs, and I can say this because when I started playing in 4e, it was kind of starting to be very common then. You're kind of encouraged to sort of be a coddling DM where like, you know, don't kill a PC because, you know, it's not fun. And it's sort of like, you know, is that the system's fault, or is that sort of like the advice and the culture around that system? I feel like they're connected, but they're also, you know, two different things.
Well, it's
That makes sense.
It's the culture's fault. It's because like when I pick up a new edition, I keep running it the same way I always have. Like, and what happens is I was talking about this on Yang a little bit, but like I kill a lot of 5e player characters all the time. I mean, I slaughter them left and right. I keep a memorial for them in my Rolled Sword campaign, and I have a few house rules that make it easier to do that though, because I explain all this at the beginning of a game I run. I'm like, look, 5e is tougher to die. You can die, but it's harder, especially when you get above a certain level. It becomes really, really hard to kill a player character. It can happen, but it's usually got to be a lot of bad luck or really dumb choices. And I feel like there is a way to play it. So I have like a couple house rules that make it easier to kill them. It's still tough, but it's easier. And then I kill them all the time. But but I find that the culture is like a lot of the newer players have trouble with that. They don't.
Yeah.
So you got to tell them up front, like, hey, look, I'm not going to hold your hand or save you. I roll openly on the table. I roll the damage dice, everything on the table. It's not me killing you, it's the dice. And if there's any argument about whether the monster would hit you or him, I roll it randomly. And I say that. I say, hey, guys, I'm not sure if this ogre would hit, Sarah or Sam first. So I'm going to roll D6.
Yeah, I did that too. It's like if there's 4 players and I'm not sure, I'm just going to roll 1d4 and okay, you get the club to the face, okay?
Yeah. No, and then they're like, they all feel like it's fair, and you see them all like, and then they respect you more, and then they don't argue with you as much, or they argue with you a lot differently. Like, hey, Rob, don't you think XYZ instead of like,
Yeah.
So, and then everyone has more fun,
Sure.
That's what we're all there for.
I'm a player right now in a 5e game. I'm a player in Tomb of Annihilation. But the guy running it, he's a player in my game normally, and he's always like a min-maxer. He always makes like disgustingly powerful characters. So I just took revenge on him, and I just made a bear totem barbarian, and I'm just completely unkillable because I take like half damage from everything except for like psychic damage. And he keeps throwing stuff at me, and I just keep muscling through. So it's been pretty fun. Mostly just because I'm messing with him purposely. So
that's cool.
Yeah, Yang, this was a point of a video I did a while back. 90% of the complaints in 2014 5e are addressed in the DMG, and we've established, Yang, that people don't like to read. So
yeah,
that's a big ask. You're asking them to read a book, man. Like, see, Mike gets it. No one reads that.
Yeah, most of the big complaints, there's like at least an optional rule for.
Yeah. And then you get the moved goalposts of like, I don't want to use an optional rule. The system should just work. And it's like, there's just no.
Yeah, but then these same people are like, oh no, rule 0 is awesome, but rule 0 is awesome, but optional rules are bad. Okay, like
I obviously this conversation's going nowhere, and I don't want to talk to you anymore. So bye. That's my response to those things.
One thing that's kind of interesting is that, and I noticed this last night, because I'm setting up my 5e 2024 game right now, and I'm going to probably start running one in a week or two. But I want to actually watch players play the classes so I can see the differences in how they play out versus 2014. That's kind of my research goal. But basically, and to have fun. But I noticed that the DMD, the new one, did away with a lot of the optional rules because I was revising my house rules for the new edition, the new revision version, whatever you want to call it. And so like healing surges, for example, I didn't see them in there. Downtimes are gone. The Bastion system and a couple other things are there. So they and then I read when I was looking into it kind of recently, hey, is this stuff still there? Some of these things there? And then I saw that someone said that the designers thought that downtime and a lot of that stuff was poorly designed. So they've kind of changed it. So they've got like, you can craft items and stuff, but it's not considered really a downtime. Well, it is, but they don't have a downtime, like they don't call it anything. It's just between adventures, So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I was like, so I was trying to figure that out last night. And anyway, just made me piggyback on what you said about the options of the DMG. And I started thinking, man, they kind of changed it up, but
let's see here. We got there was one comment here. Patty talking about faith. That's really cool about your faith and sharing that with us, Rob. So
yeah.
And I guess on 5e too, we'll bookend that point, killing characters. I was running Adventures in Middle Earth game, and Matt, who's in here. I know I gotta get the people been asking me, and I need to get the One Ring 2nd edition game back up and going. I intend to, I want to. It's just I'm like swamped. I
still needs to die from that poisonous knife wound.
Yeah. But I was running a Adventures in Middle Earth game, which is 5e, very similar, and it plays pretty much the same as 2014. And Matt's character got. I always talk about how he got taken by wolves. He ran up. He's defending the party. He's a ranger. I'm going to save everyone, and then like the wolf just bites him. He's like down. He's making death saving throws, and I'm like, you know what, like, and this. I guess this is a difference where culture, like we're talking about culture, is different in between like I guess the old school mindset and the advice around the culture now is like your character's down and this wolf bit you and you're down, like the wolf is going to start dragging you off into the woods to eat you, like that's what a wolf would do. Like, cool, I got my food, let's go. And I don't care if you're making death saves, it's going to eat you in the bushes over there if no one can save you. And thankfully Vic and everyone else was able to save him. But yeah, it was like it's possible. Like, and I fully intended to kill his character because that's just what was going to happen. They saved him, but like if the roles had gone otherwise, Matt's character was going to get eaten in the bushes by wolves. So
that's what I do. I'm like not last night, Monday night when I died. Like I kind of said aloud because I didn't want. I had a newer DM. He was younger, and I didn't want him to feel like he couldn't kill me. Like I was like, kill my character, I'll just come back more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Here's a stronger twin.
I turned around and I said out loud in my voice, "Hey guys, these are undead. They're not thinking. Like you guys can run and save It was our friend Michelle. She was playing the rogue, and I was like, she was down, and I had pulled all the undead on me, and I was like, I could probably go 2 or 3 rounds, and I yelled out like, hey, you guys just run. Like we're overwhelmed. Like this is too much. And like, they're dumb. When they kill me, they're going to keep eating me like Walking Dead style. Just jump on me and start tearing my brains out. You'll have like a good hour before you have to worry about them. Just run. Like the one guy is better than 5, don't piss them off and poke the horn at us and get them to start coming after you, like then we're all screwed. But that's how I run it when I play my like undead or an animal, like you were saying, John. Like I don't have it. They just keep attacking even when you're down, and they're death saving, double death saving.
It doesn't matter. They don't care. Like,
and I explain that. Go ahead.
But I think like the culture around it, like that's not the rules fault that people are sort of what they would normally do. I think what the average GM would do is I think that the average GM. The average dungeon master leans more towards the coddling, sort of protecting the player's mindset, as opposed to the more adversarial and mean dungeon master, right? I think that the temptation, because you want everyone to have fun, generally is like, I got to protect the players, and I got to make sure everyone and a character dying isn't fun. And so I think it always goes that way. But like when you play a monster, you're not being an adversarial GM, but when you play a monster like a monster, like you're just making the monster do what the monster would do. You're making the wolf do what the wolf would do. You're making the skeleton do what the skeleton would do. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think like 90% of the time players are, if they've made a choice that put them in that position, they're willing to accept the outcome of whatever it is, even if it is character death. And it can be super fun. I'm sure it was super epic to have your dwarf like fend off all those skeletons, and then the party is able to escape. So it's like
you touch on a soft man. Because what happened is the wizard who called all these undead to kill us. The new DM got eager, and he's like, I gotta take Rob down. He's gonna stop my plan to kill everybody. So he magic missile Nova'd me, and like then he dropped me, and I couldn't stop it. And I only stopped him for 1 round, because I would have stopped him for like 5 rounds. I probably would have killed them all because I could have kept surging second winding. And I was gonna drag him, kite him around the house so that none of the crossbow half orcs could shoot me. But he magic missile me. So
and I mean, to bring it back around. To bring it back around to your books, though, like looking at the monsters.
Oh, those are boring. Let's talk about dwarves and undead.
Well, no, like you have like a lot of. I think one thing that we need to talk about. We've mentioned it in past streams, but like you have you have a lot of monsters that are entirely new to OSC in here. And, I'm looking at the abilities and stuff in some of them, and they're totally like on point with old school D&D. Like, do this save or you're dead, or, bad thing happens. You might not be dead, but maybe you're got level drained, or you got poisoned and you're having these bad effects. Like you have like these severe, these creatures they're scary, which is good, and, bringing it around to playing monsters as monsters. I think if players understand that, and if, for instance, they're running your module, I don't even know if I feel comfortable calling it a module because it's so big, but they run Gods of the Forbidden North. They're going to, there's a real potential. When I was reading through this, like, they're going to die. This is going to be some, I got to roll up a new character moments in the first 2 books, at least. And I'm sure in the third.
Gotta toughen their skin up, You gotta tell them this is not a game for boys and children, folks. This is you gotta man up here when you walk into this hobby.
I mean, D&D does say ages like 12 and up, but 12.
Well, 12 their voice starts to drop.
In biblical times, that was like coming of age. You're a man now, so toughen up.
Toughen up. You're entering the Agogi or whatever the Spartan got. You see them getting dragged away from their mother, and they're fending for themselves, killing each other. Right. 12 and up. Should be 7 and up. I think there's like going to be like 300 new monsters. And that was another idea I had. I could probably create a 5e monster manual on top of that, and that could be its own book, and it would already be done as part of the conversion, like later on or something. That's kind of following what Frog God Games Necromancer used to do, or what they do. You always saw them releasing products for the OSR and then for the 5e. And you could kind of get both. And, then there was guys like me who bought both versions just to see the differences. Because that's the kind of nerd I am.
Well, even then, though, like you're the kind of person, like, I don't run much 5e at the moment. Once I get to play testing my clone, I probably will. But, if you're running, for instance, OSC, you're running like an old school system, and you do run 5e every once in a while too. Like, you might have 2 separate groups, 2 different style of players. But let's say, I want to run module whatever with the 5e people.
Yeah.
If I have the 5e version, like, I don't have to do the conversion myself. You're paying someone else to do that conversion for you. I don't know. That's a quality of life thing as well. For that kind of GM, I think, that does buy both as well. So, let's see. Being adversarial is important in Call of Cthulhu. Something I need to work on in my GMing. I got some fun Call of Cthulhu stories. I ran an investigation that went for like a year, and it was this whole. I should probably make it like an adventure module for a Call of Cthulhu, but I don't really like their license. It's kind of hard to work with, so I've kind of dragged my feet on it. But Boston in the winter, there's the worst winter, like, snowstorm going on that they've ever had in a long time. People are getting like killed or maimed in the snow, in the blizzard, and there's like this strange hairy creature walking around. And so eventually it led to them on an Indian reservation, and they saw Ithaquah like through the trees. They're like in their little Ford Model T, and they know by this point, this is like pretty far into the investigation. They're like, they know if I look at something that's abnormal, I'm going to have to make a sanity check. I'm going to have to make a throw to check that. But my player, Ozzy, he was like, I'm going to look out the window and shoot at the monster. And everyone's just like, bro, are you serious? Like, you just have like a revolver. You're not going to do anything. He's like, no, I'm going to do it. He leans out the window to like shoot the revolver. And I'm like, right. You look out and you see this like giant 60-foot tall hairy creature with red glowing eyes, and it's just stomping through the treetops after your vehicle. And so, like, do a save. He does it, fails it, and then I roll. I roll, determine like what happens is you have your revolver out, you're back inside the vehicle, and he just started firing it randomly in the vehicle as he was like raving mad, just like shooting his gun. random directions, almost shooting the players, and they like had to hold them down and subdue them as they're driving off from this 60-foot tall Sasquatch hairy creature from the Indian reservation. It was good times. He obviously he lost his character, and he had to roll up a new one, and his character had to go to. He didn't die, but he's in a mental institution. So it's good times.
Making like glyphs on the walls with his own shit.
Yeah, pretty much. I like Call of Cthulhu. I think it's a great game.
I like the more pulpy stuff. Like, let me shoot the monster with a Tommy gun.
Well, you probably like Pulp Cthulhu then, which is
Did John just do the Simpsons thing where someone's like, is IP there? Who? IP Freely? IP Freely. I love Call of Cthulhu. I love TikTok. Wait.
Yeah.
I did.
Awesome.
Dom's a channel supporter, so he can roast me all he wants.
Yeah.
That's part of the benefit of supporting.
GMing goes.
I think he follows me. I recognize his picture. I think he's on X.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah. Good guy.
He's on Gilded. But no, as far as GMing goes, I tend to be too nice because I don't know. My main group, it's like half of it is like people I've known for like 20 years, like 10, 20 years, like they're my best friends. So I'm like a little bit too nice. I'm sure if I get to running some games on the Gilded, hopefully this year, I'll be a bit more willing to murder everyone. So, except John, John gets to be the fucking cool dude in like all my games. He just gets to like one like John Wick and just kill everyone.
That's a way to breed player animosity towards me. Yeah. Several players are like, why does John get to do all the cool stuff?
Yeah.
Chubby Funster also asks, what can you tell us about the experience of playtesting groups without spoiling anything important?
They died.
I mean, that's what I was talking about with the monsters in here. I was looking through the monsters, and that was partly what like appeals to me with it is the volume 1 and 2 is like some of these monsters are gnarly, So, or the traps or the situation. I got to illustrate some traps for volume 2, the ones that you sent me, and I was like,
yeah, you did.
This this one there's that one trap. I don't want to spoil it, but.
Oh, you can spoil. Or just
there's like these invisible lines. I wonder if I could find the picture of it that I did.
That would be chapter. No, that's chapter 14. The Tower of Eyes. No, that's 13. 13. Excuse me.
13. Okay, let's see.
It would be somewhere in the beginning. That's Yagashan's lair, I think, right in the tower.
Yeah, 119. Okay.
The razor wire ones.
I had fun drawing the picture for it.
Barrel of 8 or bust. That's what I say.
That was a Casey Christopherson trap. He did, he's with Frog God and Necromancer, and he did the City of Brass. They did their version of it, and he wrote that whole thing. And he's a really great guy. If you've ever met him at a convention, he met me at North Texas, my first convention I went to, and he was so chill. He's like, "Hey, bro." He's like, "Dude, what up?" Like he's like that kind of guy, like the coolest, chillest guy ever, And you're just like, this guy gets along with everybody. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, my blur filter's going on. There you go. So there's like these invisible like razor wire, pretty much, and if you walk through it, you're gonna get chopped up. And so when I saw that, I'm like, I'm gonna have fun illustrating that one. But so the monsters and the traps were very we're on this question here. We're very deadly from what I've read. So
I'm most pleased, to be honest with you, with I think in the second book, my favorite, like hands down chapters to write were probably a toss up between the last two chapters, the Malum Hades 17 and Brass Temple of the Magoth 18, because they both to me played on they were built off of, inspired by, and were sort of my head nod to both the Tomb of Horrors for 17 from Malum Hades, and to me one of the greatest battles in an RPG product, which is the Upper Temple of Orcus and Repanathuk. So like to me, like those are like / Thulsa Doom, Temple of Doom type of kind of imagery that those types of encounters things. So to me, both of those were a lot of fun. They're both incredibly dangerous encounters. I designed them to be as fair but lethal as possible, as realistic as possible. The Malum Hideous was I go back and read it. I'm so proud of it. That's like probably the chapter I'm most proud of all the books so far. And it's just a huge death trap dungeon that's an ode to Gary Gygax and Tomb of Horrors and all the derivative works that he's inspired, probably uncountable. And I did my own death trap dungeon in that style. And it's an optional, how I work around it design wise is that it's optional. There's a huge thing you can achieve if you can get to it and win at it. But you don't have to beat the game. And so to me, that was like incredibly dangerous. And like, I killed so many characters while running that through the background. Brass Temple is really hard, like not to give away too much, but like it's literally in a column of rock rising out of a magma pool in the underworld, and this path on both sides leads up to it, kind of terminates in the rock at a blank wall, but that's an illusory wall. And on the other side is a huge gate. And there's all these guards that are sitting there that never sleep. They're called Grim Guys, which is totally like from old school Super NES games, like Grim Guys. But they're like flesh golems with like all their bodies tied up and their like mask kind of bolted into their face. And they're like super guards, like fighters. They have detect abilities up at all time. They never sleep. And they're just watching out there. And as soon as you walk up and you're like, oh, what's this rock? And they like all get ready and they all attack. You're like, ah! You take your eyes around and then, you're probably either dead or running. And then you have to like, okay, now we got to take down the thing. And then we have to get through a gate that's built into a rock, a fortress in this huge, it's tough unless you're really high level. Like, and even then you might get skewered, so it doesn't pull punches. And I found that my favorite designers, like Bill Webb and others, they designed that way. Gary Gygax, they just said, look, we'll give you some hints. But we're not gonna, we're gonna let the dice fall where they may. And that's why, to go back to what you had said earlier, I like thinking of, I don't like the term dungeon master or all the others. I like it referee. I like to use that term because to me, I'm there to challenge them, but I'm there to enforce the rules and to be fair. So when I design things, the dragon's over there and it's really tough and it's going to defend its lair very well, like a 1,000-year-old creature with, an 18 intelligence would, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you want to go over there and be stupid or, you're going to die. Like, and I think that's important because then the game loses something if you don't have the thrill of I could die, right? Like, there's no risk, right? Like, it's just.
Well, thinking about design too, and Vic and I have talked about this, and I don't know if you have the same mentality. You mentioned the word balance, but I don't know if you mean balance in the same way I think a lot of people mean balance. Like when I design something or when I present the players with something, I don't really think of a solution. Like I don't think of here's a problem and here's one of many solutions, or I try and think of a couple different solutions to the problem. Like, because I've discovered in the years of refereeing of game mastering that like it doesn't matter what I present to the players. Like they're always, if they're good players, they're going to come up with super creative ways of solving the problem. And so for me, it's like I don't even have to worry about it's fun because it's like I don't have to worry about presenting the problem and then here's the solution. It's like here's a problem, solve it. I want to see how you solve it. And you're going to probably solve it in a super creative way that I would, even if I did plan for a solution, it's going to be different than whatever I planned for. Right. And I think that's super fun and awesome to design that way. And it, to me, it kind of sounds like you sort of, and that's how I think a lot of the old, like Gary, when he did his like competition death trap dungeons, I don't think he designed things necessarily like, hey, here's the one solution or the two solutions, or, it was sort of like, here's a problem, solve it. here's a death trap, get past it somehow,
Yeah. When I first started writing adventures myself, it was really hard to like not fall into that balance trap and like try to make everything perfectly balanced. And once I managed to abandon that, it was actually pretty freeing. Like, once you just start writing an adventure and you're just like, yeah, this might be hard, but it's cool. Like it's going to be a fun encounter, even if they all die. I don't know. It's just more fun to write that way.
I mean, for me, I think that it's good to have some sort of balanced rules, like in terms of like making sure that it's not over or under. Because if I'm trying to
Yeah,
market
of course.
an adventure for 7th level, I don't want to make it where 1st level characters could.
Yeah, you don't want to, like, if there's 7th level, you don't want to throw like 14th level
Right.
monsters at them. But maybe like 9th level monsters is fine.
Oh,
10th
right,
level
right.
monsters might be fine. Like, yeah.
No, not like 4E where it's like
Yeah.
totally so scripted that it's, I'm not suggesting that, but I do think it's good to have some sort of guideline. And so I'm sure if you saw in the book, like the first one, and I think it repeats in the second one, I went and looked at the rule cyclopedia, which you got right there, like in the corner of the screen. And they actually have a section for balancing for basic D&D. And it's real complicated. So what I did was I was like, well, I'm trying to be that struck, but I want some sort of guideline to make sure I'm kind of roughly in the right area just from the start, even if I'm not entirely, and I need to play test it and tweak it a bit. But I basically took theirs and made it simpler, a little dumbed down, and then I used that as my rough formula for just how I design the monsters stat wise and what they can do. But that's usually the last part of the design process for me. My first thing is I look at it more like a soldier, because I was, and my dad was an officer in the SF team, and like I went to OCS briefly, and then I dropped out because I got a job as a professor. And I was finishing up. I was using the army to pay my grad school. Yeah, hooah. Big hero. Yeah, so I was doing my National Guard OCS too. It wasn't even the real OCS, but I was there in the OCS, and they were talking about the like kind of like the officer's handbook, like strategy and tactics, and you're looking at like you got to think, how's the enemy possibly going to come at me if I'm hunkered down here, or if I'm going to them, what are they? And you have to kind of brainstorm, what are the things that could happen. I look at every single like design as, what could the players do here? And then I flip it. Why would the designers of this place make it this way? Or why is it this way? Yeah. And make sure that everything makes sense. And then I'm not trying to like brainstorm all the ways the players could solve it so that I could shut them down. I'm trying to make it where I might be able to encourage them or give evidence of, like, for example, if there's some way to do X, I want to maybe put something there to suggest that very, very subtly, or, or maybe the enemy would know this and wouldn't want that, and he would have to shut that down because that makes sense and he's intelligent. So, or maybe he puts a barrier there and make it harder to do that. So it becomes like, and then that's where the fun is in the game, right? Like that, I'm not saying no, I'm saying no, but, or yes, but, or making it harder to accomplish. And then that makes it more challenging and more fun, right? And so that's kind of the way I look at all of it. And that's, to me, the Death Trap dungeon was like the ultimate in that, because I was like, okay, think about the smartest players I've ever had and all the crap they pulled on me. And because I've always been the DM almost always. And I'm sitting there thinking of all the ways I could solve this and all the ways I could be dick just because it's a Gary Gygax ode. And this time I was, because I was like, but I want to give a hint of a way to get out of this, or maybe 2 or 3.
I know with a lot of those dungeons that Gary wrote, it was sort of those humbling dungeons, because he had players that were like, oh, we're so good and we just steamroll everything and we've got it all figured out. And he's like, oh yeah, well here's the Tomb of Annihilation or whatever, here you go. Let's see how well you do in this. And it's like, oh, okay, actually we shouldn't be so prideful.
The way I tend to write my adventures and like encounters and like all that stuff, I try to take into account like the toolkits that I offer to the characters. So like in Modern Necessities, you have like access to machine guns, grenades, flashbangs, like all sorts of stuff. So if there's like, a bunch of goblins like behind sandbags with a machine gun, like in my mind, it's like, yeah, you might be able to throw like a grenade at them, or like you sneak behind them and like plant some C4 and stuff. And if you don't have that grenade and you don't have that C4, well, sorry, you should have planned ahead and maybe bought some. So, kind of my way of like maybe balancing it a little bit, but yeah.
We got a question about Volume 3. Is saying, so when is the launch, and is it DTRPG printing? So I have his website up here. You got 12 days. If you go to his website here again, pulphummock.com, I'll throw it in the chat again for you guys. Right there. you can get it or sign up. And you said you had like a VIP thing as well. Maybe we can.
Yeah. So if you go to this page here, like you see that little opening, the button down there with the get early access. So that's if you want to be a VIP member and you're pretty certain you want to pledge for the project already because you've read the books or whatever. Usually you would put your email address in there, hit the red button. You're going to get an email that's auto-generated to you, and then it'll tell you if you want to go forward. You can throw me to like $2.99 or something like $2. And basically you'll turn around, you'll get, it depends on what you end up backing at later on. And I'll talk about that in a second, the different tiers you can back at during the campaign. But basically, if you do like essentially a digital product or like one of the print on demand products instead of the premium edition offset books, basically you'll get like all my VTT tokens that are already sized appropriately for optimized for VTT platforms of all kinds, whatever you use. You'll get all the illustrations and all the books. So there's like, almost like 700 or 800 of them that'll be optimized in the same formats. You'll get all the maps that are optimized in the same size and sized correctly. I don't have the ability right now to go and do like a dynamically lit version for Foundry or Roll20 yet. That's hopefully down the road after this third book. But basically, like you can get all those, so you could go do it yourself still. You'll have everything there. You just got to drop it in. You'll get all those VTT digital assets. You'll get a digital poster map of the Brass Temple battle with Lagaram at the end of Chapter 18, Volume 2, or Yaguriak if you end up with a spider demon there instead. For those who've read and know what I'm talking about, you'll get an actual miniature-sized digital map of that's sized for minis. If you turn around and get the premium edition books, you will also get the physical copy of that map. And that's the difference there. That's the VIP reward difference. You'll actually we'll stick it into one of the premium edition book covers, like slide it in and, it's folded like a mini map, like you'd see like in a D&D product. And it's got the whole fully sized Brass Temple encounter, and Glenn Seal did it full color. It's really badass. I wish if I had it, I would pull it up right now, pull it to John, but you can show it. But it's really cool. And so that's what you'll get if you give me $2.99. So basically that costs like $1.75. So you're giving me like 75 cents or 80 cents, whatever you're getting me. That's really all I'm getting. And the idea here again is just, I'm showing my hand here. I'm not trying to be shady. I'm just trying to get to see who's really going to back me on first day, because that helps me figure out how far I got to go with ads and spending. And it really helps me like with my first day projections and such. It just really helps a lot. That's for the VIP side. If you don't want to deal with any of that crap, which is totally fine, just go to the Kickstarter page. Go to Kickstarter. Look up Gods of the Forbidden North trilogy, and my pre-launch page will pop up. You'll see it. You can just hit the notify button, and I'm launching February 4th, Tuesday, 9 a.m. Eastern, and it's going to go till March 6th, which is a Thursday, and it'll stop at 5 p.m. Eastern. So, and there's going to be there's basically, if you've never bought any of my books, there's 3 pledge levels for you. And if you've bought my books before, there's 3 pledge levels for you. And so like, let's say Vic bought PDF of volume 1 and 2. And he's like, I just need volume 3's PDF. And that's all I'm doing. He has a volume 3 only PDF option. There's a volume 3 print on demand option if you were buying those books. And then there's a volume 3, you get the slipcase, the third book, and then filler and cardboard or whatever they put in the factory to hold it together until you could slide your other 2 into there, because if you already got those 2. And then if you're a newcomer, you're getting the whole trilogy. So basically they're going to cost a little more because they're getting all 3, but there's basically a $59 PDF full trilogy and all the illustration assets just as files. They're not sized for VTT, but just the illustrations, the maps, both unlabeled and labeled, and then all the and then of course the PDFs themselves. And there's a couple of like wilderness hex maps and stuff you get that are in full color that you get as well. So, and they're both referee and player versions. So you get all that for $59 digital if you're a digital warrior. If you want the print on demand books, there's a $99 one. That's that you get all 3 books and then all the digital content with it. Everything I just described from the $59, you get the same thing just with the physical books. And then there's the $179 one. That's the one for the 3 premium offset print books. If you've not had those, I've got a manufacturer who's going to do them. We're doing it Smith sewn binding, 80-pound paper. It's real thick. it's got matte coated paper too, so it's not glossy when you're reading it on the interior, but on the exterior, the glossy hardcover, it shines. So you got it on your shelf, it's like, woo, but then you open it, I can read it. so it's got a ribbon there and too, so you can save your page. And I talked about this a little last night on Yang's show, but I've got Terry Venata. He's my Hollywood concept artist, Hollywood concept artist. He did all the covers. That piece right there you're looking at was him. And that's going to probably be the art that goes on the slipcase, actually. Originally, that was supposed to be the art for the third book, but he's doing a new piece that's green, and it shows Volthoom fighting the Endworm, fighting Balor and his Death Knights, Chaos Knights. And
cool.
Parties are kind of like on the back of the cover, like creeping in and watching, So basically I'm thinking that's going to go on the third one. So it'll be like a light blue color, a dark blackish color, and then the green, and then the darker blue on the outside. I think that'll probably look the nicest. So
that sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah. You answered a Gray Day question if the previous volumes will be in premium editions during this launch for volume 3. So.
Yep. So just go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I say because volume 1 you only did print on demand, right? And then when you did that Kickstarter, and then volume 2 you offered premium, and then now you're going to offer premium for all 3, obviously, to fit in this potential slipcase that you're talking about. So I like that.
Yeah, I was trying to keep things simple the first volume, and I knew print on demand was a simple way to just get into this and start learning the ropes. And then once I felt comfortable, I was like, let me add this extra element of like the additional fulfillment, which was tough. And I'm glad I didn't do it the first time. But now that I've gotten that down, I feel like, okay, now I got all this done. This is all starting to come together now, baby. So yeah.
That's something I should have. I'm glad I went offset print and fancy for Makuhito, my first Kickstarter. But man, it was, and that was the most nightmarish part about the whole thing, was trying to get offset print set up. I don't know if you've had the same struggles and issues as I did. Part of it was just that I'm a moron and I don't know what I'm doing, and I had to learn as I go. But man, it was rough.
Can I ask, like, what are some of the, like, just real quick, what are some of the issues that you ran into? Because I ran into issues like every stage. So
So one of them I can say is I did my maps in Worldographer, which I like Worldographer. It's a really cool program, and I had made my own tiles, and I had a custom map. It looked beautiful, and it worked out really well in the print on demand version.
Yeah.
But then what I was quoted from the printer, because I'm trying to save money to just myself, and the customer, but also like give a quality book. And Makuhito's only red and black on the inside. So I was quoted just black and just a Pantone color. So not 4-color CMYK printing. So just the K and just a Pantone red. And trying to export the file to do that was a whole other thing in itself. And I was dumb in Affinity and doing my layout in exporting that. And I had to go in and redo some of the art, because you can't, if I just did CMYK art, you can't export it as that Pantone color. So I had to go back and like edit some of my art that had the red in it and go into Affinity Designer for those pieces and change it to that Pantone color, and then make sure that exported properly, so that when I put it in the Affinity file for Affinity Publisher to publish it as a PDF for print, that when I exported that, it was in the right color profile and it was exporting the Pantone color that I needed. So that was a struggle in and of itself, trying to figure out how to make that work. But then with the maps, like I said, they were CMYK. They were not going to work for what I was quoted. So I ended up just making them grayscale. And so that was one drawback with the hardcover compared to the print on demand. But I was able to make it print, because I had to make it print in just K, because otherwise I had to totally remake the maps entirely from scratch in a different software to make it work with the red that was on the maps. It was just a total nightmare, and I was wasting too much time, and people are waiting for the book. So I just went with black for the maps. So that was something I learned, was like, okay, if I'm going to get quoted on this you know, I have when I'm producing the art for the thing, I have to understand like down the line how that's going to affect what I'm doing, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, no, it's like anyone who does a small business. They go from like whatever it is they're really good at and passionate, and suddenly they're a business owner and a marketer and all this stuff they didn't go to college or whatever for. They're like, what the hell? And like, but they're like really good at what they do theoretically, right? And they like, so they start looking stupid because they're like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, what the heck? So I mean,
I barely finished high school. Like, come on, what are you expecting?
It's hard, you know, like it's hard running a business. Like I got burned by a lawyer. I don't think intentionally. I mean, but you never know. You know, he was doing like my copyright, like my you know, when I was trying to trademark my logo and stuff. I'm just trying to do everything right, you know, like just in case, like. And I went through all that, and I spent like $3,000 on this guy, and it took like 9 months, and he comes back, and turns out that like we picked up one slightly wrong category for like I guess the copy or the trademark people are like really like anal, like for obvious reasons, and he was like one slightly thing off, and like my thing's not a role playing game because it doesn't have dice with it. And it's really a book or like a role-playing book or adventure book. Like it's like really like minute. And like this lady in Hawaii, she was this lawyer who was dealing with him for the federal government, I guess, or the trademark bill, was like basically came back and was like, yeah, this is no bueno. Bye-bye, start over. And we're like, can't we just change it? Like it's just, can't we move the tick from here to here? And you stamp it because you said that's the only problem? No. And then he goes, yeah, so I got another job at a different law firm doing a totally different kind of law. See you later. And then like I gave him $3,000 or something, and like for nothing. Like, and I was just like, and then he left the agency. I couldn't even go to the firm and say, do this for me, because none of their lawyers, he was the only one that did that. So I was like, and I'm not going to sue a bunch of lawyers. They'd kill me. So like, I was just like, that is a waste of friggin' money. So I ended up having to do it myself to the state, and I don't know if I've done it right yet because I'm still waiting on it. It's been like almost 2 years. So like that's just one thing that I ran into, and I ran into so many, man. So don't feel dumb or anything. Like it's hard.
Oh,
it's really
well, hard. I don't think a lot of people that make books that are just consumers, not to just like take a dump on people that buy stuff, because you know you buy my things and I appreciate that, but like I don't think they understand the complexities, the struggles, the obstacles that you have to overcome. And I was trying to be as transparent as possible during my Kickstarter, and people seem to be very understandable with that. I tried to keep the updates coming and like, okay, you know, we made progress in this regard. I got the color profiles all figured out, like, you know, so now we can move forward. So yeah, Agile Monks thinks you got ripped off, but
probably he's right. He's probably right. Either way, I mean, I did get ripped off on some, even if he didn't intend to initially. He definitely ripped me off. He seemed like a nice guy and like he was genuine, but I think he screwed it up. And there, he basically was like, "You're gonna have to pay him again." I probably should have busted his balls and really gone after him, but I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. I should have done it from the beginning, but I'd gotten burned in court before. So I was like, never go into legal stuff without an attorney. So it's like one life lesson turns around and informs the next disaster. And you're like, damn it, now I got to go back to my old stance, which is no lawyer, which means I'm going to get burned next time because I didn't have a lawyer. So, this is crazy, man.
Well, maybe Agile Monk is someone to talk to. He seems like he knows a thing or two about it. So
I ended up doing it with the state of Delaware instead of the federal government this time because it looked easier. And I was just like, I'm going to do it myself. And I had all of his old setup, everything that he had done right. I still had his forms. So I just basically copy and pasted everything. And I just looked for that one area that we screwed up on. And I, you know, made that change. So hopefully 30 minutes or whatever it took me to do that form now, that paid $3,000 more will actually work. But it'll just be through the state now. But whatever.
Yeah, that I mean, this kind of goes in with Chubby Funster's questions, like, what did you learn from the first two Kickstarters that you're applying to this new Kickstarter? And I mean, it sounds like I don't know if you want to talk about it, but I remember with the printing of you had some issues with like printing as well. You had some issues with I don't know if you had issues with importation. I had issues with importation when I was getting my books imported. The boat crashed into the bridge in Baltimore.
Remember that? Yeah.
And so my importer was like, because I got my books printed in Lithuania.
Wow.
My importer was like, well, it was going to go in through there, and now it's going to take longer because it has to go in through New York, and New York is all backed up because Baltimore's down, because everyone's going in through New York, so it's going to be a little more expensive, and it's going to take more time. And I'm like, ugh. So,
Yeah.
you know, just I guess for me, it was just learning to plan for those things, and you know, I think what I learned, and I think. And this is like for other creators out there, and maybe you can echo this, Rob, but like when you've been transparent in this stream, but when you're transparent with your backers and you're just like, look, guys, this is what's going on. And like, you know, I have to make this change, or it's going to take a little longer because a boat crashed into the bridge in Baltimore. Like people are generally understanding when you're open and transparent with them about what's going on behind the scenes with your Kickstarter.
Yeah, I've ran into some issues with mine, and I've been very honest about them. And so far, like 99% of people have been very understanding. I've only had like 2 like jerks so far, so you know, knock on wood, I guess.
Yeah, no. So for me, I guess, what was his things I've learned? I mean, there's a ton. I mean, we could probably go for 6 hours. I could tell you everything I've learned. Like I guess the first. Really, I'll try to answer as quick as I can. The first, you know, I came into this whole thing before I started ever publishing and doing Kickstarter. I have a creative writing terminal degree, equivalent of a PhD, an MFA, and so I'm a good writer. I'm not the best writer in the world. I'm a good writer, and I know how I understand the theory behind it and stuff. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had worked in nonprofit sectors and done a lot of work like that, where I had learned the value of persuasion and making contacts, relationship building with donors, and understanding those principles. So when I came to this, and I'd also taught rhetoric and composition, so like Aristotle, like, you know, all the different appeals, and, you know, like coming at somebody, like understanding what their warrant is, what their underlying belief in their argument is that's causing you both to not even be able to start from the beginning on the same place, and you can't even go anywhere with your arguments, you know. So understanding all that, how to reach audiences, how to target them, rhetorically speaking, and all this other stuff. I think I had the groundwork for how to write and how to create the book and everything. That stuff I knew going into it, and I knew how to speak with people and deal with them and convince them, give me money, and to buy into the vision that I was hoping to create through their contributions. But the things I did not know was like how to do a crowdfunding campaign. I'd never done that before. How to run a business, particularly how to print and publish and do offset printing and freight and all the things that you have to do logistically behind the scenes that you don't think of, you know, when you pick the book up, right? Most people anyway. And so my first foray, volume 1, was really focused on the Kickstarter process, because I use Drive-Thru-RPG, and so PDF's easy. Like someone just does that for you, or John like does it himself. And then you just take the files and upload them on Drive-Thru-RPG. I mean, that stuff's easy. The print on demand stuff, that's why I did it that way the first time, because that's pretty basic. That's what I recommend most people starting with, because you kind of get your handle on the industry and everything before you start tackling bigger things. But anyway, so really the learning how to do a Kickstarter was, and there's a formula. And I've actually kind of wanted to teach a class on this now. I know this formula really well now, and it works. And what happened was I went, and my grad school years taught me to research, you know, very carefully, and look at all the data I could, and try to make a, you know, estimate, educated guesses where I didn't know or couldn't find data. And I basically created this template for how to run a Kickstarter campaign. And then I started using okay, well, who's my audience? Who am I trying to find? And I knew that from my years as a professor and my studies. So I started like looking for my target audience, who I'm trying to appeal to, who I'm trying to think would be interested in this product. And then I had to build this campaign with no advertising budget, nothing. I never used ads. And I was able to get about 35 grand with being a nobody on the internet. And it worked. And I learned from that what I was doing good and what I could have done better, in a few areas I didn't do at all or didn't think of. And so my second volume improved on that. My average pledge, the first campaign was about $40-something. My average pledge, the second campaign was $92 or $93 per pledge. And my conversion rate was much higher. I had a 35% conversion rate of people who signed up and actually backed me versus the 10 to 20% standard. And I started noticing that, like, okay, that worked, and this worked even better. And now this time I'm trying to go even further with volume 3, and trying to get into everything about how to set up a Kickstarter would be its own stream and probably multiple streams. But kind of just in general, that's one big component I've learned. And I think I feel now like a Kickstarter expert in some senses. And I wouldn't say I'm the best in the world by any means, but just I feel very competent at it. And I feel like I know how to set the page up better now, how to present the information, and then how to deal with the donors afterward, and so my strategy has been like, just treat it like a nonprofit. No one else is doing that. You got to differentiate yourself from the crowd. So my first thing is, I'm going to tell them exactly. I have 2 financial accountability reports that I posted on my updates in volume 1 and 2, where I laid out exactly how much money I had and how much I spent, where I spent it, which I don't really see anyone else doing. And I treat it like a board. Like, I'm going before my donors and I got to answer for the money. They gave me $35,000. They gave me $108,000. I can't just like say, here's your book, and not say what I feel like I owe them an explanation for it, because they had the courage to give me money across the internet, and they believed in me, and I view them more as a customer. So like, being transparent really has paid off in spades. I feel like a lot of the backers, they trust me more. They want to get more involved. And that's the thing that happens in nonprofits. You don't just want the person's money. You want them to volunteer on the board, help you because their company makes this, which could help you do that. You start thinking that, like, we're on a mission together. And like, I think that's why I go back to what I was saying at the beginning, like having that nonprofit view, even if there's a for-profit a burner on the back end, I feel like that's the first thing. I think the other thing I learned, now shut up, I'll try to go quicker.
You're good. You're good. Keep going. This is all good stuff. It's like it's total insider baseball. I'm loving it. So
yeah.
I get. Oh, well, let me just stop right there. I'll put my thought on pause. What do you guys want to comment on what I just said, or jump in, add anything? Let me just.
I like your idea of being transparent of where the money is going, because we see a lot of Kickstarters where they make tons of money, and then you get the book and it's a little underwhelming. Like, let's say the layout's not super great, or the art isn't that great, and you're like, well, like, where did the money that we all gave you go to? What did it go into? Like, what ate it all up? I mean, if you're gonna pocket it, that's even fine too. Like, you as a creator, you had an idea, that's great, but just being transparent about it, I think that's because you are. I think you're right that, like, Kickstarter is a different way of marketing your book. Like, I kind of viewed it as a pre-order thing, which I think to a degree it's sort of like that, but it is something a bit more, because people are taking a risk on that pre-order. They're taking a risk on what it is, because you don't have anything to deliver to them yet. It's all promises at that point. So
I suppose. I mean, I kind of like mixed feelings on this, because at the same time it's like, why am I writing a report for a guy that gave me like €9? Like, okay, yeah, like 1,000 guys gave me €9, but at the end of the day, you're just one guy that gave me €9. Why am I writing a fucking report for you?
Well, I think there's probably varying levels of what you could do. As to what you want to tell people. And I think like I said, I think any level of transparency is useful. Like, when I was going through the stuff I was going through with my getting books into the country and stuff like that, people were a lot more understandable. I think they were frustrated, but they were like, it was like they were frustrated with me and not at me, which I appreciated, so
I think as long as you're just transparent and open, and if there's issues, fucking just mention them. I think you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to bog them down either. You don't want to put out an update over every decision.
Yeah, no.
But like,
yeah,
I guess. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I've been pretty open about the fact that, like, I'm struggling a little bit with the stretch goals, because I just haven't been feeling that all that creative. I've had like some real life stuff happen and stuff like that. So they haven't come out as fast as I wanted originally. But so far, everyone is like cool with that because I've just been honest and open about that. So
someone said earlier here, was it Jaeger? He said having the PDFs in hand buys a lot of understanding. And I think in my case, and probably your case, Vic, like we were very quick in getting the digital stuff out. And when I did Makuhito, I was very quick. I think I was like a month or two later after the Kickstarter ended of getting the print on demand books out.
Yeah.
So like all that was left was those imported books. And so people are just like, nah, you're good, man. Like I have the PDF. Those that got the print on demand and were waiting for the hardcover were like, well, I got the print on demand book, and for now, like this is holding me over. So I think just if they see that you're working very hard towards fulfilling something, they are your backers are very understanding and thankful. They're willing to go on that journey with you, I guess.
But no, you definitely have a leg up on me though, Rob, because you have a PhD in writing, you have like all this stuff. Like I have like a high school degree in like carpentry, and I have like autism, and that's about it. Like so,
I mean, but that's that's not gonna hold you back. I mean, like the guy. I go back to what you said about €9. Well, it's €9 you didn't have.
Yeah, no, of course, but I'm kind of just joking. But it's like
I know,
I'm thinking about having to write like a whole financial report. I have no idea where I would even start because like when I get the money, I don't know beforehand where I'm gonna spend it. Like I'm just gonna approach an artist and like, hey, get me some cool art, and we'll see what happens. So
So what I do is I wait till the end of the project, right when I'm fulfilling, to do a report. And then I just say, here's where I spent it. Like I'm not necessarily going to get like their approval of every dollar spent, but I will say like, here's roughly what I did. And I view it like a simple budget, like you would at home, like start there first. And, if you want to get more detailed, obviously I try to protect the identities. I didn't want like people to know how much I paid John exactly. Yeah. But like I put all my illustrators were this, I put like, probably Glenn Seal, you can figure out because he's layout. Other than him and the debt, that's me. That's like everything else was probably different. But I basically just thought like, let me show you how this is. And I'm actually considering really strongly for volume 3 that once I launch it, I'm going to start walking through with my updates and explaining what I'm actually doing for those interested, like actually making it like informational and useful and like make it where people want to back me just to see like the stuff I'm revealing. Because like, for example, like I'm revealing like even my sales on Draft RPG, which I don't have to do because that's the for-profit end. I've made 25,000 and change right now, and I've sold 1,404 copies of volume 1. I've sold 414 copies of volume 2. One thing I noticed that's really interesting is that when volume 1 launched, I had a spike, and then it went down. It was the second month that was my biggest month, and it went down to the 6th month, and then I fell off the charts. Volume 2 dragged volume 1 back up onto the charts. They rose up, and then what's happened is real interesting. I'm selling 1 for 1 almost, volume 1 and volume 2. I'm actually selling a lot more volume 1s, which is now a platinum bestseller, than I am volume 2s. Nice. Now I've only made 25 grand though in 2 years. You're not getting rich here.
More than me.
All that money went back into the, essentially the project's bills, and I'm still technically in debt. Volume 1 was 30 grand I was 30 grand in the hole in that, partly because I was originally funding the project out of my own pocket before I went to a Kickstarter. I used to have a much higher paying job where I was like, whatever. And then I took a hit. Now I'm on professor salary. Yeah. So now I'm not as, I'm willing to throw money on my own stuff, but not like I was. And so what happened was that's why I did the Kickstarter, is I needed to fund the rest of it. And so I was buying it, like I was buying the art that I wanted, spending lots of money. I got really quality artists like John and others who really, really great artists. And I was like, I want this to be really nice looking. And I'm going to put a lot of money in the art, which most people don't do. And I never negotiated with any of my artists, like I said, what do you think your money's worth? Because I'm a writer and I'm an artist in a different way. And I wanted them to be respected. And I always paid them within a day or two of them fulfilling my invoices, which I heard later on they never do. I've had many guys tell me in private that like they've waited 3, 6, 9 months to get paid. And sometimes that contractually they were required to get paid within like 30 days. and that goes back to my dad, who, agile, you're in here still. My dad, being an SF officer, infantry mechanized officer, was always telling me as a kid, and my brother never, there's a couple things you can't screw with on soldiers, right? The roof over their head, the food in front of them, and you can't mess with their paycheck. You can't mess with the roof on their head. And so for me, I was paying immediately. All of my contracted employees got paid immediately when they
Same,
it. And what happened was and I always overpaid them in some cases. Like I had a guy submit an 8,000 word, 8,000 and a half word thing, and I had contracted for 10,000 words, and I was pleased with what he gave me and was happy. So I just paid him for the 10,000, because I just wanted to be goodwill with them, just like with my donors, and like I've found that it builds a community with them, like they start trusting you and you start trusting them, and they're more willing to help you over them. And it's just like the relationship thing back with the donors. That's another thing that I found. And a lot of people don't do that in this industry. And probably a lot of industries, maybe, I don't know, but I found that really seemed to make a big impact. That's another thing I learned. And you can get a lot of people eager to work with you, and help you out. And a lot of times, like John has 6,000 people who follow him. I don't have that many people following me. He works on my thing and it helps him, but but it also, like, he's got a stream, like that's really cool that I get a lot of benefit from that. He gets a lot of benefit from me, and we have a good relationship. And like you get Casey Christopherson retweet you on Facebook, or Jeffrey Tulane, these guys, like they got a following, and people will listen to them. And it's sort of a really, you just got to go around. So that's another aspect of the business that I've learned. There's also, it's a small world. You don't want to talk smack about people. You never know who's friends with who. So like, I try to go into every situation. Like, I'm not trying to make enemies with anyone, even if they don't seem to be nice to me or whatever. I try not to do that. I just don't want to get entangled. And then I would say another thing I learned was the shipping and the freight, which is its own thing, as John's talked about. So one thing I learned, and John, if you have any different thoughts on this, by all means, hop in and tell me if you think I'm wrong or if I misunderstand something. My understanding so far from the industry is this, and I'm very new at learning all this, because I just started doing offset. I'm fulfilling it. My stuff's almost here. So basically, the U.S. printing industry, from my understanding, basically went away. And China and Eastern Europe has basically taken those, and they, like, all their master printers, if you want to call that, those people who practices as like a career, they do most of that work in those countries, in, like he said, Lithuania for John, where he went with the Eastern Europe, China. And so if you want really good quality, generally speaking, and I'm not trying to knock American makers or anything like that, I'm sure they would puff up and get mad at me, but there's very few of them left, and they're very expensive. So like, I'll give you an example, like the base cost of like one of my offset print books, which they get less and less expensive the more you buy at once, right? So like, if I buy 1,000, it's going to be cheaper per book than if I bought 500. If I buy 5,000, it's going to be a lot cheaper than if I bought 1,000. That's why the Kickstarter platform, by the way, is so great, because it's like John said, a pre-order. It is a great pre-order, because now I can say, I'm not going to go buy 5,000 books and I only sell 2. Crap. Like, instead, I know how many I need. I maybe buy a little extra just as a cover, and then I'm good. So that's really great. Kickstarter is like a beautiful platform for creators. It's awesome. And so is Drive-Thru in its own way with the print on demand. But so basically, like, I'll give you an example. Like, my offset print books were probably base cost, not counting any of the other stuff, like the layout, the art, and all that stuff, probably were around $9 and change each. Now, I could sell each of those because they're premium and they're done by the best bookmakers in the world. I could sell that for $79.99, $89.99, maybe even $99.99. But it's actually cheaper than the print on demand. The print on demand book costs about $21 to make. But that's because it's not spread out over a large printing. So print on demand, the Drive-Thru, they are taking the hit. And so what they're doing is jacking their cost up, and they're going to charge you $21 to make that book. And then what's left, let's say I charge $69.99 for my print on demand book, which is a pretty standard price for a larger book. $20 basically comes out of it right away. And they keep that. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the remainder, and then 30% they take off that. And I look at that as that's no staff, no customer support. I'll have to deal with it. I'm totally cool with that. So I end up making probably like $35 to $40 a book, somewhere in there, when it's all said and done. The PDF obviously doesn't have the base cost. It's just 30% off the top. And that's just because they have everyone goes to their site and you got to pay the taxes. So, but the offset I turn around, I go to, let's say, China or Lithuania. I mean, and $9 a book, by the way, is high. That actually includes the freight. That's why I use the company I used, because they package the freight into that. And that's one less company I have to deal with. So they did the whole thing all the way to New York. And then New York turns around and takes it to New Jersey like a stone's throw away. And then the fulfillment guys take over. It cost me $20,000 approximately, a couple $100 off, to get both volume 1 and volume 2 in offset format. And that ended up being about $9 and change per book, roughly, with everything packed into it. That's the base cost of an offset print book. And it's much, much nicer, much nicer than the print on demand. And the drive-through RPG print on demand quality is really good for print on demand, I think. But like if you went to Boda Games, which they are not in Shanghai, they're like off in the country where it's even cheaper to pay the poor Chinese out there to work there. They like $4 a book was the quote I got, 4 and change. And that was with 1,000, 1,200 books. Imagine if I was Kelsey Dion and I ordered 10,000, 20,000.
Yeah.
You know, like now I'm paying $1 or $2 a book, right? And so like obviously like, and if you can get, and so that's the first thing is like, it's real cheap, but then you got to freight it over. There's these huge containers that I've learned that, you know, that you see them with the trucks pulling them, you know, so the containers, they can fit a certain number of books depending on the size of the book. So like, you know, like you might be able to fit 5,000 or 6,000 regular size books in those, but if your book's thicker, it's going to be less. If it's going to be smaller, it's going to be more. So it's cheapest if you can fill an entire container, but that means you've got to be able to sell, you know, good 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 books, which I haven't done yet. So then what happens is if you can't do that, you've got to turn around and find someone to piggyback off of or pay like almost like a rental fee to like, because one guy fills up the container 60% with his crap, but they got 40% space. So you end up trying to guide in there and trying to like, well, my little pallet's going to go right there. And so this is a lot of issues. And a lot of times the people you're dealing with, there's sometimes a middleman guy who's American or whatever, and he's taking a cut and charging you more than what he's really getting charged for that. Do you see what I'm saying? So there's like, first you got a manufacturer in another country who probably doesn't speak English unless they're really, really great and they have an English speaking one. And then you got to like get through all that stuff with them, just creating it, making sure they didn't screw something up because they don't understand you. And then you got to turn around and make sure that gets to, you know, Shanghai or wherever Eastern Europe ports out. And then you got to pay someone else, usually a middleman who's getting paid too, who's like a third guy really, who makes sure it comes over. And then you got to pay a fulfillment team, which I'm paying now about 17, 18 grand for, to ship out, pack, and do everything for me because I don't have a warehouse because I'm just a regular guy and I don't have that. So that's the process. And that does not include all the art and everything else that goes on top of that, right? Yeah. So like right now, base costs, shipping and base costs, it was 20 grand for my 2 books at a print run of 1,200 each. And then it was, and I went with my company because they did all that first part for me. And I was like, okay, I'll pay a little bit more to make that easy. And then they had a North American front in Canada. They're all these Canadian Chinese who probably have ties back to China, family or whatever. And so it was like dealing with like a regular American or Canadian person in terms of being able to communicate and their responsiveness and them being on my time zone. But then they dealt with everything else. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do that because this is my first time doing this. And I want to be sure. And they're still a North American company, theoretically, you know, that they're working through. Then I'm paying another 18, 19 grand for all the shipping to get it out there to everybody internationally and domestic. And so I learned from that, well, you know what? The internationals cost a crap ton of money. It's like $100 go to Australia. Okay, like, you know, what a lot of companies actually do is they get multiple fulfillment companies. This is what I'm going to do in my third one that I didn't do before. Like what I'm going to do next time is I'm going to tell my company who's making my books, break the order up and send the internationals to these guys over here in Shanghai, and they're going to deliver everyone to Europe and Australia, and it's going to bring their prices way down. And then the rest of the shipment will come over here. My US guys, my North America guys will send everyone out over here.
That's
and
smart.
I've had about 75% of my customers are from North America and 25% from everywhere else. So it's worth it to do all this to me because that's a big chunk of the change. And I want everyone to be able to get my book. Roughly, that means most people will be paying $30 to $50 abroad, who normally would be paying much more.
Yeah.
And everyone here will be paying the regular prices, which are pretty inexpensive when you do it in bulk. So that's another thing I learned was like, how can you simplify? You have to first learn all that because I didn't know it. And then you need to like start to pick up on, and how can you navigate all that? And there are cheaper ways to do it than I just said. And I know that, but like from peace of mind, I did it that way because it simplified things and I work still for a living. So this is a side hustle that's like taking up a full-time job's as John probably can attest to as well. And like, so like so that's the second thing. So right now, I just like dropped like 40 grand from that. I learned from my poster maps, my early birds. This was another little thing that turned into a big deal. These poster maps were like $9 each, or if you bought it, or you got it for free if you pledged early. And that's what I did last time. And it was great. It worked. Got a lot of people pledged early. I didn't realize my guy who's making my poster maps here in Tampa, Florida, I didn't realize to tell him he needs a barcode on there because the fulfillment guys won't take it. So he creates it all, gives it to me. And then I take it to them. And they're like, well, we're not going to take this. So, like, how would you know that? Like, unless you've done this, you've done shit. I haven't. So I had to eat $6 grand because I had to go mail this stuff off myself. And I can't use the fulfillment company's much cheaper lanes of shipping because they get these sweetheart deals because they're moving so much product, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. So like, I had to pay that out of my pocket. So right now I sent out we got our US ones out. And all my internationals, there's like 150 left. I'm going to have to hold on and wait to the Kickstarter. And when I get the money, because I'm tapped out, once I get the money, then I can send their stuff out and they'll get theirs eventually. So like, that was another thing I learned, and I guess like the thing is I guess what I would tell people is that like, there's a lot to it. And then of course, there's business itself, like starting a business, starting an LLC, taxes. That's a whole nother thing, right? I'm sure a lot of you know about that. So there's a lot to it. And what happens is a lot of creators like myself, John, Vic, we just want to do this because we love the hobby, and you start getting into it. And then I got to do that. Well, I got to do that. And then you've never really done that before and you got to figure it out. And there's just so much to it. And I can say one last thing and I'll shut up. I will say now I feel like I've got a very good handle on everything. And there's still going to be stuff that pops up that I've never dealt with because of this or that. But I'm like, okay, I feel like I got it. But this took me, 2-3 years? I'm almost on my third Kickstarter starting in a week or two. So, there's like literally could write a book on this now. Like there's just so much to it. So, but yeah.
I think that's smart because Vic had noted, because he backed Makuhito. He's like, it's kind of funny, John, like it's going to go from Lithuania and Europe back to the United States. And then it's going to go from the United States back to me. And I'm like, yeah, it's just the way I had to do it, because I had some international backers and I think it helped me be successful, but I went with one fulfillment company in the United States and they still had very much like cheaper rates than if like I was going to do it myself to ship internationally. But yeah, that's smart. I think if I were to ever do anything like that again, that might be what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm sorry, but I'm sticking with print on demand for as long as I can. I'm writing that shit until the wheels fall off. I'm in Europe, like that adds like a whole new dimension to everything.
Yep.
You have to talk to a fulfillment company in the US, and then for those select few European customers, Australians, fucking Laotians, whatever, I would have to talk to like some different, I'm some dude on disability. I make like under minimum wage. Like I'm glad that I can just do this much for now. So yeah, I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I guess my advice to other creators out there that are new, like I'd already released some print-on-demand books up until Makuhito. So by the time I got to Makuhito, I'm like, I kind of got a feel for like this print-on-demand thing. Let's try this offset print thing, this Smithsonian nice ribbon bookmark foil cover. Like, let's go all out and see what we can do. And I learned a lot. I say I'm never going to do it again, but I'll probably do it again at some point, with a book. I'll get an idea and I'm like, man, this book needs an offset print.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get to that point. But like that it's a different beast, and you have to be you have to be ready to deal with that different beast, because it's
I'll get to I'll get to that point when I make Kelsey money and I can pay other people to handle all that shit for me.
Yeah, because I probably paid more for what I'm doing with Mockweedle than I probably otherwise could have. I probably could have saved money on fulfillment, on importation and stuff. But like, kind of like what you said, Rob, where it's sort of like, well, I'm willing to pay a little bit extra more money so that I don't have to worry about it, and I can go to sleep at night and not be worried about fulfillment or be worried about importation and be worried or whatever, like I'm fine paying to have someone else have that, who knows what they're doing, have that responsibility for me. So
yeah, no, it's just complicated because and like, I haven't gotten to a place where I could like stop doing my day job for this, like, so like I have to do both, and then that puts an even bigger pressure on you, because then you got people saying, hey, why haven't you done this? Hey, why haven't you done that? Why haven't you done that? And you're like, dude, I get up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 in the morning, in order to work, because I have to, or else my day is just, I won't get anything done. Like, like I have to get it done before everyone wakes up. And because the day is going to be really busy, and like it's hard to do that until you get to a place where like all these bigger companies that have a team, they're established, they actually probably could quit their job if they want to, whether they did or didn't, that's their choice. But like that's what's difficult. And that's why, again, I go back to the Kickstarter platform and looking at it as a donor thing, because then it's different when you're like, I'm an artist practicing my art, trying to get by, working for a living, and I want to create things and I need help doing it. To me, that's why I come back to that view of it. And I think it's a good way to approach it, because then they're more understanding when they realize you are working on top of this. You're not just like, Paizo or Wizards of the Coast, where that's literally your job. Like this is your passion that you're doing on your side that, maybe you want to make money off of, but you're doing it because you love it. And I think that's why it's good to have that mentality, just to kind of tie it back to that. Like because it's true. Yeah. Like so far I've not been profitable. I think I will be with this Kickstarter. I think I will be. I don't think I'll be. I think all the money I make will go into the next project and make it where I now have it, where I'm starting to have the next project covered. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I'm actually not sitting there going out and buying a Lamborghini and going, woo! Like nothing like that is occurring,
And I'm not sure that's even possible in RPGs. No. So that's another realistic thing that we need to understand, is like people are like, I get people in my comment sections like, why do you work so hard for such little money? Because I don't make that much. Yeah. And this isn't the only thing I do. I do freelance art and graphic design and work for other people. And on top of the people that are kind enough to support the channel via like YouTube membership or Patreon or whatever. But like, it's because you love what you do, and you have to be okay with like, there's that psychic satisfaction as apart from the monetary one, where you're like, yeah, I don't make a whole lot of money, but I love what I do, and it gives me great joy to do it. So that's why I do it, and you have to be okay with that. If you're going in with a pure like business, I'm going to make tons of money, like RPGs are not, that is not the niche business market to be in to do that. This is like,
you have to be very lucky.
You have to be very lucky, and you're probably not going to be that lucky. So more often than not, you're going to have to scrape and climb and claw your way to the top before you even have a chance to be that lucky. So
see, I have the benefit though that I'm already so poor that like anything is like anything is better than what I have. So.
It's you got to come at it like this is a passion, like an art. Like I'm doing it for the art. I'm doing it for the game. I'm doing it for the hobby. I do it because I love it. And what happens, I think, is you just have to come into it like, let's see where it goes. If you write something, if you do something innovative or good, or people are going to eventually notice, hopefully, and they'll start building a following, and it might be slow. But then you just got to make connections with people who are a couple steps ahead of you. I mean, that's basically what I've been doing. I mean, I have a guy, I don't want to say his name on a thing, but he calls me up and I tell him what I'm doing. He tells me what he does, and he's way ahead of the game than I am. And, and then you just can't be stingy yourself. You got to turn around and be free with it yourself to others. That's what I'm trying to do, is just you know, trying to like get from others to I can get better, and then give to others so they can, you know, and maybe eventually you get your little market, your little corner of it, and you get a fan base, like, and that you get to where you want to go with this, wherever that is. I mean, I love this. I'm not sure if I want to do this full time RPGs. Like I have other ideas for screenplays and, you know, like writing novels and working on video games is actually something that's really been coming up a lot lately. I've got some contacts in the video game industry who've told me to send me their resume, and when I'm done with this, and I'm thinking about it more and more. And I guess there's a lot of like crossover with, you know, game design, actually, funny enough, analog game design, you know, tabletop game design with video games. Yeah. And so that's something that I've thought about as well. And I'm sure I would always keep my foot in this if I did leave and did that. But you know, right now I want to break even, because then it's like I got the book out there, the product's out there, and I'm glad I did it. To me, it's a piece of art. I tried to make it a piece of art, a piece of our hobby. It's a love letter to me, for all the years of fun I've had, and I'm sure I'll continue having as long as I'm alive. And I want to give back to the community. I want to make a fun adventure the way that I always thought they should be written. Whether that's the best way to do it or not is, I'm sure, debatable. But yeah.
Well, we're getting to the end of the stream here, and I want to give people this kind of turned in, which I think is cool, because I think what people can see is that, like, I think when you're a creator, people kind of forget you're like a human being too, that you're a person behind the pen name, behind the book, behind the art, you know, that there's a human being back there. And so I, you know, for everyone out there that's watching, whether live or the playback later, you know, Rob's a real guy and making real stuff. So, you know, and he's definitely delivered, because I got these two fat, again, 2d10 bludgeoning damage with these things. So, you know, sign up, back volume 3. You're supporting an indie creator. And if there's any, like, is there a final thing that you want to sell people on to check out, or, you know, why they should?
This will be the largest published adventure. No, it's the first book is the Arctic wilderness. It's the setting, it's the history. Some people don't like the first book because they don't like histories, long histories and stuff. I would have to say you really need to look at volume 2 before you make a judgment on my book, because I don't look at these as 3 separate books. I look at it as one book that I'm forced to break up because of the size of it, kind of like Tolkien had to, who I'm a big fan of. And you know, his book was supposed to be one book, and they busted it up, the publisher. So like that's kind of what happened to me, except I did it to myself. And to me, if you go look at it as one work, you'll realize that you know, like this is one gigantic, enormous. I mean, I think that's one thing I can brag. I don't think there's a hex crawl as big as mine anywhere now with those 2 books by themselves, because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wilderness encounters. There's like 11 dungeons, I think, scattered out through there, and then there's this whole world built around it, and setting and lore. And the 3rd book is going to be this, finally, the what I was going for at the beginning, this huge mega dungeon, which isn't the biggest mega dungeon ever published. It's got 600 and something encounter areas in it, but it's big, and they're all high level. It is a high level. I am doing the impossible. Everyone says high level adventures don't sell, and high level adventures hard to do. Well, screw you. I'm doing a high level mega dungeon. The whole thing is 9th level plus. The whole thing, and that's what it is. And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get it done. And it goes straight down, that one last hex, straight down to the earth. That's what the volume 3 is all about, and takes us to the end. The 2nd book is all the underworld underneath the Arctic surface. You know, and they're all like 31 connection points. So your characters can go from Valkengard, the city, to Skullberg, stop at a cave, kill a hill giant. And then you find out there's something in the back of the cave, and it's a passage down to a whole nother ecosystem that is fully mapped out, detailed, with hundreds of underworld encounters. And then untold numbers of wandering monster tables and situations that you could come across on top of that. In addition to all the dungeons that are down there. So, I mean, it's just a massive undertaking, and I'm very proud of it. And I'm really excited to bring it home and finish it up. I'll say one last thing. The third book is coming along so fast. It's just easy to do now. That's the final thing I learned from all this is, boy, I can do this a lot quicker now that I know what I'm doing.
People say that about Vic and I, like, you guys get books out and write so fast. And it's like, well, it's because you start to get your pipeline and your ability to do it. Like, it's practice, you know. The first book you suck at and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is taking forever and this is hard. And by the time you've done it a couple times, you're like, okay, I can kind of breeze through this part. I know the system that I'm doing to get this done. So
yeah, no, it's very satisfying. You know, I'm just glad it's almost over, and I'm really happy. I'm excited for people to read it. You know, like that's actually my favorite thing out of all this. You know, money, yeah, whatever. Like whenever someone tells me, like I had this guy who's a tenured professor, I don't want to say his name, he reached out to me like just the other day, and I've had this happen so much. And he reached out to me and he said, Robert, I've been reading this and I'm almost finished with volume 2, and I haven't only had a couple of people reach out to me telling me they're actually reading the books from front to cover. To go back to your point about reading. And he said, this is probably the greatest product I've ever read in my 40 years of playing. And when, you know, you hear a guy say that and like, you know, I that's like so cool. And I'm not trying to be the best product ever made. I just want people to enjoy it, you know, and hearing that though and I've heard that from a few individuals that are saying that this is a very important work, a critical part of the history. That's just like really cool. Like that honestly is like reward enough because I love this hobby and I love playing and sure you guys do.
That's like Tim Kask. Like he said, he liked Makuhito a lot, Tim Kask, and he said like this is the greatest game design in 30 years is what he said in his YouTube channel. And I'm like, bro, are you gaslighting me? Like, come on.
Awesome.
like that's not so but having that praise from someone you respect or you know, from some like, you know, a 40-year veteran like that, who's like, this is the best thing I've ever read. Like that's high praise. That's not something you can give it that would be wonderful to hear. That's something wonderful to hear from like a GM. As a GM, like let's say you're running a game and one of your players has been around the block a while. And this is like, hey, the game you're running is one of the best games I've ever been in my 40 years of playing the hobby. Yeah. Like, you know, that's great to hear. Doesn't, you can't put a price on that necessarily. No.
So, well, maybe I'll hear it someday.
Vic says as he casually lifts his heavy Any award on his neck.
I mean, yeah, that does help a bit. That does make me feel better.
All right. Well, we'll start wrapping it up here. Check out Gods of the Forbidden North, Volume 1 and 2. Again, big, awesome books. The thing I think that's cool about them is the imagine telling someone like I ran all 3 of the books. Like we went start to finish. We went through all 3 books. Like that's some bragging rights right there. That's like if we had achievements like in real life where they pop up on the bottom of your vision, like that should be one.
Read the books, started writing them. Yeah.
So check that out. Vic, I want to give you a chance to say anything that you're working on if you want to highlight anything or direct people towards anything as well.
Check out Modern Necessities if you like urban fantasy, you like modern stuff, and you like old school essentials. Check it out. I had to redo the print copies a little bit because there were some mistakes. Hopefully those will arrive soon, and I'll be able to put those back up on Drive to RPGs. So right now you can only buy the PDF, but it's like $14.99. It's not that much, and you get like 160 something pages of kind of like D20 modern, but for old school essentials goodness. And since it's old school essentials, you can combine it with the Gods of the Forbidden North. It's fully compatible. You could do some isekai stuff where like a platoon of like army rangers gets transported to the Forbidden North, and now they have to kick in some doors and throw in some grenades, but they're dealing with weird supernatural shit. Who knows? So hopefully at the end of the month I'll have one of the supplements for this out called Single Action, which is like my Weird West supplement. So there's like new classes, new magic spells, new monsters, like all that stuff, to give Modern Necessities a weird West flavor, an old West flavor. And yeah, that's about it, really. Actually, no, I'm also working on Blacklight, which is my upcoming supplement for Shadow Dark, which I'm hopefully kickstarting in maybe a couple months. We'll see how everything goes. But yeah, just keep an eye on all that stuff.
Yeah, for me, I'm working on a 5e clone, called it Weird Worms. I'm posting like some updates on that. I'm posting updates on everything I'm working on my Patreon and on the Gilded server on the back end for supporters and those that want to support what I'm doing. I'm working on Weird Worms. Vic and I are slowly working on Redacted. I haven't worked on it in a couple days. I probably need to get back on that. I start today. I fired up my old document that I was working on for the Conquistador part for Makuhito. So people have always asking, like, John, when are you adding the Conquistadors to the Spanish to this? And I am working on that again. So get off my back. It's
Yeah.
So I'm working on it. So it's not going to be a super extravagant thing. My plan for that is like a Conquistador class, a mendicant friar class, can't talk, and then some rule changes for the Aztec classes, for the native classes as allies of the Spanish, and then some history, some lore, some background for when the Spanish arrived, and then maybe I might do some more monsters, some new creatures, I'm not sure, and some items and whatnot. And I want to have some mass combat rules that I'm kind of importing from a previous zine issue. I'm going to try and modify that to fit the Conquistador thing, because it's Aztec versus Conquistador. So you got to have some potential for at least large skirmishes. So yeah, working that's what I'm going to do for that. And I have some other stuff that I'm cooking up, but I don't want to talk about it yet. It's a little premature. So yeah.
Awesome. That's both cool.
But
no,
you go ahead, Vic. Go ahead.
Joby Fons had a question. It's like last minute question. Do we have an estimate for how long it would take a group to complete all 3 volumes for first hour going up? 6 sessions.
2 per book.
Yeah.
But
that's the usual. That's the standard. That's the RPG standard. 6 sessions.
Clearly. No. I guess Chubby, I guess I'll tell you my design principle, like for the whole thing, is that if I had a party of 6 to 8 characters, because that's what Old School Essentials is designed for. All you out there saying you can't get that many in your group, clearly you're just unworthy. No, no, it's in the rules itself. It's a 6 to 8 characters. So I designed it for 6 to 8 characters, player characters. And I was like, which class has the most experience to max out in an old OSC? And that's the Druid. So I took 6 to 8 Druids and said, if I need this much experience in all 3 volumes. So just think, how long would it take if you wanted to unturn every, pull up every stone of this book? Like, you would have to, how long would it take you in OSC BX to go from 1st to 14th levels of Druid? And that's your answer. So, yeah. So there you go, which is a long time.
Probably years.
I think this is a these are multi-year campaigns.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. These are yeah.
Even just the first book, just that hex crawl, you could probably spend years on there if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not doing everything, which I assume is what most groups are they're gonna jump around, do what they want, and you could theoretically get in there 9th level, like maybe, but I think you'd still get slaughtered.
As long as you do the Barrel of 8, I worked hard on that one. You have to do that one.
Dang right, the Draugrs, they're so simple.
Yeah.
So some of us don't have enough time left. That's what you're saying.
Yep. So just give me money and read it and dream, and then just like I do with all the books I'll never run. Yeah. There you go.
Or make that time and run those games.
Yeah.
I always wanted to run Talus and Ardenpool. Like, there's a bunch of them I want to run, but I'm like, oh my gosh, the amount of time. Like, I've got a Rapanathuk game, right, that I've been running on Roll20 for a long time. I've got 300 dynamically lit pages. I mean, like tokens, everything. It takes a lot, and I don't have people around me anymore to play, so I can't play in person unless someone like a backer. I get invited to play with my backers sometimes, but they but those are one shots usually. So anyway, it's just like you said, man, Chubby, it's we don't have much time left. Gotta do what we gotta do. Get this out now. Pick a hill, I guess. I don't know.
At least get some of it done. Finish one of them. All right. Well, we'll end that here. Rob, thanks for coming on, and I hope that through this conversation you get some more people signing up on the VIP stuff, or at least interested to back when this comes out. So let's let me share this tab.
And his art, if you haven't figured out, his art is in it.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it. See, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not good at talking about myself. Yes.
John is one of my originals. His art's he's in the first two. He's going to be in the third one for sure. One of his pieces was a full pager. I couldn't fit it into volume 2. It was the last one you sent me. I'm going to put it in the intro of volume 3. Early on.
I don't remember which one that was.
It's the halfling and the guy with the mustache, and they're like, it's full pager, and they're like looking. I couldn't fit it in the way the layout did. And you were like, I think you were the last piece of art I got, or one of them. And Glenn was already working on layout, and he was basically like, if we put that in there, this is what happens. I was like, no. And I was like, all right, it's going to go in the intro of volume 3. That's where it's going to go. So you are definitely going to be in all 3, John.
Awesome.
That's another thing people don't realize, the pains of doing layout. It's like, oh, you should have done it like this. It's like, yeah, you do it then. This is really hard.
you deal with like the title of one section going to like the other page, but like it's not easy. It's not easy. Cut me some slack.
Yeah.
But check out Gods of the Forbidden North. Again, search it on Kickstarter. I have links to his website in the video description below, so check that out. And I wish you luck, Rob. I think it'll do well. And
thanks, man.
You keep talking about, I'm not looking to make a profit, but I hope you do. I hope you become very successful at what it is that you do.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. I've always appreciated the time. If you ever want me on again for any other reason, by all means.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Always willing to make time for you, man.
Anytime. We can just talk about running games at some point. I'm totally up for that. We kind of got into that here, but you have a lot of experience and insight into that stuff, so I think people would really dig that. But we'll end it here. Thank you again, guys, for watching. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Vic. And like, subscribe, share the stream if you enjoyed it. Tell your friends about it. Support on Subscribestar, or not Subscribestar. I don't have any more. Patreon, right here on YouTube or on the Gilded server. And I think that's it. Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Everyone. Bye. Bye, everyone.